So it all starts with our boy who was at some championship. He's a big name in the gaming industry, and today was the day when he was about to win his third world title. He is standing there hyping himself up for the upcoming game, and the next thing you know, he is standing there in front of the army of these ugly dudes who are staring at him like he is some rare breed. Two of these warrior dudes notice him and start roasting the poor guy immediately. One's like, his name sounds weird, and the other's going off about his clothes and size, calling him a shrimp. But then things get really wild. One warrior realizes the guy next to him is literally the same dude who killed him. The other guy's staring like he's seeing a ghost, asking if it's really him. They're giving each other these intense death stares, and Taiho's thinking, oh great, I'm about to witness a murder. Their eyes are lighting up like we're about to get some epic anime showdown, but they start laughing their asses off instead. The dead guy's like, yo, I'm only here because of you, my eternal rival. The other one's like, dude, that fight was absolutely insane. Then Baldy asks if the guy died right after, and he explains how some kid with 5 braids jumped him and stabbed him in the gut while screaming, Dad. The man's laughing about it, saying the kid's going to be a strong warrior someday. The father's all proud like he already is. Meanwhile, Taiva's just standing completely lost in this testosterone-fueled reunion. That's when the story hits us with the flashback. Taiho had been in the tournament, literally 1 match away from his 3rd world championship. Everything's going perfect until he faceplants into his keyboard. Now he's wondering, did I actually die right there, or is this the weirdest fever dream in history? Suddenly some girl points at him and announces he's the champion who won countless duels. All the warriors turn and stare at his scrawny frame like, how the hell could this twig be the king of anything? Half these guys already want to test him just once to see what's up. Poor Taiho's completely out of his element and probably wishing he'd just stayed dead. He's blaming this girl for dragging him into whatever insanity this is. He remembers that exact moment when his face met the keyboard. There was some strange light and then the mystery girl appeared. She starts going on about how people who die in glorious battles carry the soul of a true warrior. Taiva's like, wait, does that mean I'm actually dead? But instead of a straight answer, she just tells him to follow her. He asks if she's leading him to hell, a reasonable question, honestly, but before he can nope out of there, she grabs his hand, and they're flying through some tunnel of light, headed straight for Valhalla. Back in the present, Kaiva's trying to process this madness. Valhalla, that legendary Norse mythology place where only the most baddest warriors go. He's thinking the girl clearly made a massive mistake, assuming he's some grand warrior just because he dominates at gaming. The way she's acting all innocent and convinced makes it pretty obvious. Taiho tries to explain that she's got it all wrong, he's not a warrior, just a professional gamer. But then she asks if by games he means duels. At this point you can practically hear his brain short-circuiting. He lets out this defeated sigh and tells her to take him back, but before they can sort this mess out, a deafening horn shakes the entire place. The girl shouts that the enemy's here and everyone needs to get ready for battle. All warriors' eyes light up in a second. These mofos are ready for war. And Taiho? Our boy is in pure panic mode. He's convinced that he's going to die twice in one day. Then the enemy shows up and the warriors don't even hesitate. They charge in like complete maniacs, clashing with these creatures in the most intense free-for-all you've ever seen. Meanwhile, Taiva's on the sidelines shaking like a leaf, clutching a sword he has zero clue how to use. He's wondering, if I already died once, what happens if I die again? Do I get double dead? But fate's not waiting for him to figure it out. One of these massive beasts locks onto him. It attacks way too fast, and all Taiho can do is freeze. Just before the monster was about to flatline him, some warrior rushes in yelling for him to duck. The guy unleashes this brutal technique called Deep Rage or something equally metal and takes the beast down in one shot. Taiho is cowering with his hands over his ears. The warrior turns to him and asks if he knows what a saga is. Taiho, of course, has absolutely no clue what any of this means. The warrior laughs and starts explaining the whole deal to our confused gamer boy. He says being in Valhalla means Taiho did something extraordinary in life, and whatever you accomplish becomes your source of power here. The more legendary your achievements, the stronger you get. Taiva's looking at this guy like, dude, what feats? All I did was demolish bags of chips and destroy nudes in video games. But that memory hits him. Casted the immortal warrior from his favorite game. This character had an absolutely ridiculous list of epic conquests that would make even 4 jealous. As Taiva's thinking about his character, this weird light starts glowing around him. He thinks to himself, is that a system window? The warrior points and says Taiho's got his own saga now. Taiho looks forward and sees these glowing letters floating in the air like some kind of divine subtitle system. He squints at them, saying he can see the letters but can't read them clearly. Still confused as hell, he manages to make out a few words. Saga the Immortal Warrior. Power 1%. Taiho starts walking, his mind absolutely spinning. That has to mean Kalsa's power, as he thought that. His eyes light up with that classic gamer ambition. If I can use his power, I'll be the strongest one here. Then the warrior calls out, telling him to look ahead. Taiho follows his gaze and asks what's happening. That's when he sees a massive, absolutely terrifying creature holding a hammer that's literally bigger than Taiho is. The beast attacks immediately. Taiho tries to dodge but trips over his own feet, dropping his sword like a complete amateur. He scrambles up, sees the monster closing in, and thinks, no way, Karsted's power can't be this pathetic. The beast rears back for another hit, and Tyvo glances at those floating letters again. There it is, that curse 1% written so small it might as well be fine print on some sketchy mobile game purchase. He shouts, "Why is this written so tiny? Is this some kind of joke? Couldn't it be bigger?" Before leaving, the warrior introduces himself. He says his name's Bjorn and tells Tayo to stay alive until they meet again, now that the big dude is gone. Tayo swallows hard, staring at this enormous thing. He glances sideways as Sora is on the ground, looking as helpless as he feels. But he thinks fine, 1% is almost nothing, but it's still better than 0, right? Time to see if this works. He dashes for the weapon, thinking about how Karlstedt could solo hundreds of enemies without breaking a sweat. Even a tiny sliver of that power should be enough to not die horribly, right? Grabbing the sword with both hands, Tyvo braces himself to face this walking nightmare. The monster swings its hammer again, but something clicks. Tyvo moves fast, way faster than before. He dives underneath the beast just in time, and as he rolls, memories of tournaments flash through his head. You can almost hear that crowd roar in his name. Then deep inside, Karlsted's image flickers like a flame catching wind. That's when his Sava truly activates, and man, it's like someone just plugged him into the Matrix. Something shifts completely and wild electric power surges through him like the storm, and in the next second, he is zapping through the battlefield and slices the monster's head in one clean sweep, and then goes straight to being his stupid self. He fell butt first on the battlefield, so now he is just sitting there thinking, so is this the sage Bjorn talked about? Our boy gets back up because he is sure that with the help of it, he'll survive for sure. The scene shifts to the great hall where all the warriors are gathered. There's this massive celebration going on, a feast in full swing with everyone having the time of their lives. Those two rivals from earlier are sitting side by side laughing like best friends. One says he survived the fight. The other grins, calling it just a warm-up. At another table, Tango is sitting, complaining about the food. Bjorn explains that if Tyvo wants better food, he'll have to rank up. This is just the hall for rookie warriors. Low rank means basic food, no frills. Tyvo asks him if he too is a low-rank warrior. Bjorn laughs and tells him that he's here to just check up on him. Tyvo exhales deeply and thanks him genuinely, saying if it weren't for him, he wouldn't be standing there breathing. Bjorn gives him this half-smile and shakes his head, telling Tyho to relax and just try not to die next time. But before he can finish, Tyho asks what would happen if he actually did die here. Bor laughs again as he explains that anyone who dies in this place has their soul transferred to the Warrior of Steel, and once he becomes one, he'll no longer feel pain or hunger, and will fight forever. Bjorn asks Tyho if that doesn't sound wonderful. Tyho freezes completely. To him, it sounds like the opposite of wonderful. The Iron Warrior sounds more like an eternal steel coffin than any kind of reward. He swallows hard, thinking, absolutely no way I'm dying here. Bjorn then switches topics. He tells him that soon his affiliation will be determined. Tyvo asks what that means, and Bor explains every warrior gets sorted into teams, and that's about to happen right now. Right then, a thick blonde girl walks in decked in full body armor. She stands proudly and announces she witnessed their performance, and now each of them will be assigned to a legion. Tyho asks of Bjorn if that girl is a Valkyrie. Bjorn nods, saying her name's Reginleif, a daughter of Odin himself. Hagen lifts her sword dramatically and tells them all to look into their goblets. Says the name they see will be the one they're meant to follow. Tyho stares into his cup, looking completely confused. Bjorn explains they'll each be placed under the command of one of the gods of Asgard, and whichever god leads their unit will grant them extra power. Tyho once again turns to the goblet, thinking how the only two Norse gods he knows are Odin and Thor, so if he has to get stuck with someone, they better be powerful. When Tyho finally sees the image appear, his hope absolutely crumbles. It's a girl. Beautiful, sure, but not all he was expecting. He's probably thinking, where's my Thor? Where's my Odin? What is this? Scene shifts, and now Tyho is sitting in this tiny boat sailing down some quiet river. The girl's rowing calmly while Tyho looks ready to have a complete meltdown. He is thinking, they said these were teams of gods, so how the hell am I alone here? The girl notices his sour expression and asks curiously why he's been acting weird since they started. But before he can spiral into more self-pity, she cuts in again. She tells him their team has strengths that could rival any other. Even with his massive doubts, Tyho starts wondering if that might actually be true. She goes on saying no one above them can interfere and no one below them can cause problems. This place is paradise. In the next moment, our boy is back in the hall. He is staring down his goblet with the name Idun written on it, while everyone else is sure at names like Odin and Thor. He was literally the only one who got a name nobody else recognized. Bjorn's reaction back then didn't help either. He tried to be supportive and told him to stay strong. As the ceremony continued, each team leader called out the names of warriors joining their ranks. Lines of warriors formed everywhere. Tyho just stood there unsure who was supposed to lead this Idun team he'd apparently been assigned to. Then he saw the red-haired girl sitting in a far corner. This was the leader of the Idun team. Not knowing what else to do, Tyho approached her. When he said he was joining her team, she looked completely stunned. She said he was the first rookie to show up in a very long time. She added they hadn't had anyone new or young in years. While there was only one thought going through Taiho's mind, "You're way too close for comfort, lady." She then introduced herself as Hilda. Back in the present on this boat, Hilda's staring at Taiho, clearly trying to figure out what's going through his head. Finally, Taiho breaks the silence, asking what exactly they're fighting to protect and why. Hilda pulls out a map. She points, saying their current location is Asgard, and beyond that, past the lands ahead, is Muspel. She explains Muspel is home to giants, dark gods, and demons. Taiho points at this red spot on the map, asking what that place is. Hilda follows his finger, saying it's Eren, a land that's been completely destroyed. She continues explaining their team is on the front lines because of this. They're up against an enemy that wants to destroy the entire world. Taiho looks at the map, thinking hard. Something about it reminds him of a game he's played. He asks if this whole thing is Ragnarok. Hilda nods, confirming it. She said while the fight is to protect the world, deep down they're mostly just fighting to survive. Taiho finds himself wondering if there's a way to move between worlds. Just a tiny sliver of hope that maybe he could find a path back home to his gaming setup and normal life. But before he can ask more, Hilda announces they've arrived. Taiho looks at the giant door while Hilda says it's the temple of their goddess, and now as her warrior, Taiho should show his respect. They enter the temple. Taiho's eyes scan the immense structure, clearly impressed despite everything. He asks if he's going to meet the goddess in person. Hilda laughs softly, saying of course not, meaning the goddess face to face is impossible. She tells him he'll meet her, but only from a distance. At the end of the hall stands this majestic statue of the goddess. On the ground there's a circle engraved with the image of a tree that catches his attention. Hilda hands him a golden apple, telling him to approach the altar and offer it. Taiho takes the apple, walks up to the tree symbol, and hesitates briefly. Then he just tosses the apple forward, thinking I have no clue what's about to happen. As the apple hits the ground, the circle and tree light up and his radiant glow so blinding, Taiho has to shield his eyes. Everything around him shifts. The statue comes to life. Her voice echoes through the temple as she greets Taiho as her new warrior. When he opens his eyes, that tree carved into the ground is now real, golden, vibrant, and alive. Taiho immediately kneels in front of her. The goddess smiles, saying just as water flows downward, the human body expresses its deepest reverence through kneeling. Then she places her hand on his head, saying he'll receive a blessing. Golden light pours from her hand, enveloping Taiho completely. He feels this overwhelming energy fill his entire body. In that moment, he receives the mark of the guardian of life and youth. Taiho realizes his whole body is glowing. He feels strength blooming inside him, and suddenly he says that all the chronic pain he carried from his pro gaming days, his back, hips, neck, and digestion issues are all gone. Once the bestowment ends, the goddess smiles and tells Taiho that she is eager to see what feats he'll achieve. Taiho opens his eyes and he is back in the real world. Hilda appears beside him, helping him up, telling him he's been officially blessed by the goddess. She explains that Dun is the goddess of immortality and youth. With her mark, Taiho will be able to endure even the deadliest pain in battle. No matter how brutal things get, he's got divine protection now. But our boy didn't hear any of that. He was thinking to himself how the goddess looked way too perfect for his taste. Hilda continues explaining that now he's got the blessing of life, there's no real risk of dying anymore. In fact, the longer time passes, the stronger his blessings become. She laughs, adding that's why people call their teen the zombie teen. Taiho raises an eyebrow and quickly asks, if I defeated all the enemies, would there be a way to return to my world? As she was helping him up, she told him that if the war ended the way he's imagining, if they actually won, then maybe it would be possible. Since this was probably the first time he touched a girl's hand, he naturally skipped normal thoughts and went straight into delusion mode. He is out here imagining a future where he is married to Hilda and they're living together in some peaceful home. After a long day, he'd come back and there she'd be waiting for him in the kitchen like some kind of domestic goddess. In his daydream, Hilda's smiling sweetly as she feeds him with her own hands. But reality hits the moment he bites into the food. It has the texture of a used boot sole as our boy wakes up from his dream. Hilda looks at him concerned, asking if he's okay and whether the meat's too tough. Before he can reply, she tries reassuring him, saying things will improve soon if they work hard and climb the ranks. Everything gets better. But our boy just went through the reality suck and drifts again into his dream world, picturing Hilda encouraging him to be patient while holding their baby beside some calm river. Then reality smacks him again. A system notification pops up warning that his illusions have reached a critical level. The next day, Hilda decides to go over everything again just to make sure that this dumbass actually got any of it. She explains that every time he defeats an enemy, he earns something called runes. Taiho asks if it is that red energy that he had felt when he defeated those monsters earlier. Hilda nods, saying that thanks to that battle, he must already have some runes saved up. She then explains that he can spend them to unlock new skills and grow stronger, increasing physical strength, mental strength, endurance, agility, and mana. He asks what mental strength and mana are supposed to do. Hilda explains that mana enhances magical offense and defense, while mental strength increases his focus and resistance to psychic attacks. Taivo then asks if mana can also be used to empower his saga. Hilda tells him sagas are special, their strength doesn't just grow through action but also through belief, specifically how many people know the story and believe in it. She says sometimes sagas can grow so powerful they've been reality itself. She then adds that lower rank warriors typically tend to have simple sagas, boosts to speed or strength, but legendary sagas, those can create weapons from nothing, shift the warrior's form, or even summon entire armies. Then she locks eyes with Taiho and tells him he needs to remember something. The power of his saga and how far it can go depends entirely on him, as she said that he remembers the saga of the legendary brave knight Kelsted. Just then, he heard the sound of a massive bell. Hilda knew what it meant, so she rose instantly and told Cad it was a call to battle. Taiho was surprised with how sudden it was and asked if it's really starting already. At that moment, this strange portal appears before them. Scene shifts and Taiho is wearing new armor with a shield strapped to his back. Hilda stands beside him, adjusting the last parts of his uniform, and this bastard was still grinning like an idiot with just a touch as he was ready to enter the portal. Hilda told him to take care and not to die. Taiho smiled and said, "Didn't you say it was hard to die? So wish me luck," and he stepped through the portal. As he entered the world beyond, the first thing he saw left him speechless. The whole place was filled with people, and as a certified introvert, I can say for sure that it's never a pleasant sight. Suddenly someone smacks his shield. He turns around in shock and sees Jorn laughing, saying they'd met again and that Taiho looks way better now. Then grinning, he asks if Taivo's Valkyrie is pretty. He laughs even harder, adding that honestly, all Valkyries are pretty, aren't they? Before Taivo can answer, Jorn grabs his shield and gives him a gentle shove toward the formation, telling him to get moving and informing him that today's battle will be different, as they'll have a commander this time. All the warriors then stood in line while our boy stood there alone like a fool. The commander asked if Taiho was the Idun's warrior before ordering him to go to the back of the line. Without wasting any time, he introduced himself to the Legion. This dude was Ragnar from the Heimdall's Legion. He told the army that today their task would be to recover the territory they lost to the Gnolls and open the gate, declaring like always that he'll lead from the front, and the army was more than happy to die following this man. In a blink, they're in a snowy field. Taivo spots a monster on the hill, but before he can warn anyone, it leaps down, tearing through everything. This beast is no ordinary mob, it's the boss, White Fang. Ragnar shouts for the charge, but the monster nearly wipes them out in one swing, and Taiho's standing there cursing whatever bastard opened that damn portal. So everything goes dead silent, and Taiho's staring down White Fang with that massive hammer, thinking, this is it, game over man. But he's trying to keep his cool, telling himself it's just like fighting a boss in a video game. He realizes that the hammer's going to turn him into paste if it connects even once. He looks at his little shield and goes, yeah, this isn't going to do jack, and just tosses it aside. He dumps his 5 runes into agility, and suddenly his senses are heightened. When that hammer comes crashing down, Taivo slips out of the way. The wind from that thing grazes his skin, but he's still breathing. All the other warriors are losing their minds cheering because finally someone didn't get launched into next week. But Taivo realizes dodging is not going to win this fight. Some voice yells for everyone to attack White Fang's legs and bring him down. But one swing with that hammer and the warrior goes flying in the sky, and without wasting any time, White Fang raises the hammer again. That's what Taivo goes, screw it, only one thing left to do. He activates this move called Warrior's Mission, the storm that gives him crazy speed. But instead of just running around, he launches himself into the air. Mid-air, he's thinking about Hilda telling him not to die and how he's got to survive this mess. Then he gets annoyed at the narrator for making his life sound like a tragedy and basically tells the story to cut it out with the death flags. He pushes his storm ability further than ever before and channels all that speed into his feet for one massive strike, and everything that followed was a blur for him. He gets back up wondering if he's even still alive when he sees his sword buried deep in White Fang's eye. Taiho realizes that it's the only opportunity to end him, but the problem is that he doesn't have a weapon. He activates his new ability. The Sword of the Warrior summons a new sword for him. He leaps into the air and brings down the boss. Cut to some cosmic lady named Raskrid standing on what looks like the edge of space manipulating a chessboard. A raven shows up as she's like, "We won," thinking she's talking to Odin, but it's actually Hugin, Odin's messenger bird. It asked him if there was someone impressive in the new batch of warriors, but the dude was ready to be disappointed since all of them were low rank. She admits one warrior impressed her, the guy who fought the beast. Back on the battlefield, Tyler's standing over White Fang's corpse holding his sword while everyone's going nuts chanting Odin's name. The whole scene reminds him of winning gaming tournaments with all the cheering and applause. Then he looks at his weapon and gets chills. It's the exact same sword from the game he knows. Used to be rare and became common and weak. He decides he wants to keep hearing those cheers and get stronger. Raises his sword to salute the warriors when Jorn puts a hand on his shoulder. Tells him he did great and that evolving his saga mid-fight isn't something to take lightly. Taivo thanks him, saying it was only possible because of Jorn and Hilda's help. Jorn's impressed that Taivo can summon a sword from thin air now. Taivo laughs, saying it's new for him too, but he can make it appear and disappear at will now. At this point, our boy was completely spent and wanted to head back, but Jorn dropped the bad news and told him that they're not going home. Points to a fortress in the distance and says that's their next target. They're camping here until they take it. Later that night, Taiho collapses in his tent. Completely drained, he can't believe everything that happened in just one day. He's staring at his hands, thinking about what Jorn taught him regarding sensing his saga. Opens his system window and sees that synchronization has gone up to 5%. He's getting stronger for sure. He's got 2 saga slots now and wonders if he can combine them. While he's thinking about it, some warrior bursts into his tent with this weird smile, saying someone's looking for him. Taivo steps outside and sees all the warriors gathered around, every single one grinning at him with that same strange expression. He asks them what it's all about when he sees Hilda chilling around the bonfire, and he is all shy just by looking at her. The scene shifts to 5 minutes ago and Hilda is sitting on the ground crying her eyes out and apologizing to our boy. She then asks him if he can show her his status. As she looks at the list, she panics even more because the list is filled with one ridiculous achievement after the other. The girl's sobbing about how arrogant she was and how she never realized he was this powerful hero. Meanwhile, Taiva's trying to calm her down, but she keeps the waterworks going, begging for forgiveness because she called him a rookie. And Taiva's just standing there thinking, she's ridiculously cute like this. Well, I agree, dude. Seeing her freaking out like this, Taiva decides to tell her everything and explains that he accomplished all of these things in the virtual world. Hilda gasps so loud probably half the camp heard her going. All of that was in a game. Taiyo confirms it was all in a virtual world, not real life. She thinks about it and says she sort of gets it, but adds that he still did all those things, so it's still incredible to her. Then Taivo starts having this whole internal debate about whether esports should count as real sports and imagining everyone wanting to be gamers to dodge military service. Dude's brain just went on a whole tangent about societal collapse through competitive gaming. Hilda snaps him back to reality. Talking about sagas, she says usually there's no limit, but in his current state, he can only have one more saga. Taiva's got options and he's thinking hard about what to pick. Could go offensive, but then he's like, nah, that's not what I need right now. Instead, he goes for Dragon Eyes because apparently he wants to see everything. His eyes start glowing blue and lets out this massive yell that startles Hilda. He starts testing his new vision and says everything's way sharper now, but almost killed him in the process. Hilda tells him to rest and prepares to leave, but before she goes, she hugs him and says having someone like him on the team is incredible luck. Poor Taiva's so shocked by the hug he thinks the tent roof might blow off. After she leaves, some guy named Rolf from Team Ullr shows up to escort Taiho to a gathering. Taiva's wearing a helmet now for some reason, probably trying to hide his glowing dragon eyes or something. This Rolf guy explains he's from a merged unit and everyone needs to gather at Siri's base. Taivo activates his dragon eyes to check this guy out and confirms his identity, plus learns he's called the Wolf Hunter. But apparently his new vision shows him more than he bargained for. He freaks out and quickly looks away. As they're walking, Rolf's going on about how he envies Taiyo for getting visited by a Valkyrie. Says if it was him, he'd be bragging to everyone. Taiyo's feeling pretty smug about it, thinking it's like a celebrity visit. Then he asked about Team Ullr's benefits and Rolf explains they get to choose between invisibility and target tracking. Shows off by going invisible right in front of Taiho and then reappearing. They get to the new camp and Taivo meets the unit leader, who turns out to be a thick blue-haired woman apparently rare in Valhalla since the only other women he's met were Valkyries. This leader's got some serious energy radiating off her that makes Taiho realize she's way stronger than any warrior he's encountered. Her title is the Manhunter. Then this light appears in the sky and everyone thinks it's another Valkyrie, but surprise is for Skrid again. Taiho recognizes her and uses his dragon eyes to see she serves under Odin with the title Ice Princess. Raskrid takes charge and announces Commander Reynos is dead, so his unit gets merged with Ceres. She then whips out a scroll and starts distributing the rewards. Since our boy was the one who killed that thing, he got everything. Gold coins, a rune, and team points. He is trying to keep a straight face, but inside he's doing victory dances, thinking he's going to be a living legend. But then he hears the other warriors whispering and thinks they're praising his victory. Nope, they're all talking about how lucky he is that Hilda visited him. Seriously? Dude defeats a giant monster and saves everyone, but all they care about is his visitor. Raskrid shuts everyone up and announces tomorrow they will be capturing the fortress, and the strategy for that is simple. They'll be using steel rains. As she said that, everyone cheered like she had announced free feasts for everyone. Tayama tries to match the hype but has no clue what steel rain even means. He turns to ask Rolf, who honestly admits he has no idea either. So the next day, Raskrid's flying around the battlefield and gives the signal to start the attack. Warriors charge toward the fortress like a zombie horde but with better coordination. The enemy spots them coming and out pops another giant monster, this one's called Red Eyes. While everyone's clashing, Ceres starts explaining Raskrid's master plan. The main army will distract the enemy at the front gates while her unit scales the walls, infiltrates the control rooms, and opens up the fortress from the inside. She mentions they'll use steel rain to breach the walls and Rolf gets all hyped, talking like he knows exactly what that means. But Taivo's given him the side eye because he knows this dude has no clue what steel rain is either. Taiho's still wondering if it's some kind of teleportation spell or magic attack. Cut to Taiho sitting inside what looks like a giant beer barrel. Finally, it dawns on him what steel rain means. They're literally getting launched in metal barrels toward the fortress walls like human cannonballs. Rolf asks if he's excited and Taiho's like, "Are you kidding me, dude? What's there to be excited about?" Other warriors around him are cheering and yelling stuff like, "I'm going to Valhalla," and Taiho's probably thinking, "Aren't we already in Valhalla? Did you guys miss orientation day?" The horn sounds and their barrel starts moving. These things get loaded into massive cannons. Inside the barrels, it's a mixed bag. Some warriors are screaming in terror, while others are having the time of their lives, already pumped for battle. The barrels crash through the walls and everyone stumbles out looking like they just survived a car accident. People complaining about back pain, bitten tongues, and general "why did I sign up for this?" vibes. Tango's just grateful to still be breathing. Suri shows up warning them to get ready because company's coming. They look ahead and see this massive creature with huge claws surrounded by giant insects moving in perfect formation. Suri explains these bugs work in groups of 5 and if you take out the leader, the rest get confused. Someone asks how to tell the leaders apart since they all look identical. That's when Taiho remembers his shiny new Dragon Eyes ability, activates his enhanced vision, spots the boss bug, and points it out to Suri. She wastes no time going straight for the target while Taiho starts calling out other leaders by whatever traits. You can see the fast one, the handsome one, the famous one. Guys basically turned into a living strategy guide. With each leader down, the remaining bugs start retreating. But then another horn sounds, and it is time for the next wave. Suri splits the team. She'll hold the front with her group while Rolf takes a team to the control rooms. Before they leave, she tells Rolf to bring Taiho along and looks right at him, saying she's counting on him. Rolf's group is just 4 people and 3 of them can turn invisible. Taiho can't do that trick yet, so Rolf tells him to stick close. They sneak away from the main battle, and Rolf says he knows a secret route. He puts his hand on some stone and a hidden passage opens up. They head into this dark tunnel with Rolf leading the way with a torch. Then Taiho walks face first into massive spiderwebs and starts freaking out, ripping threads off his face. Looking around, he realizes this corridor hasn't been used in forever, but they continued to head inside anyways. So the group keeps moving, but Taiho's lagging behind while this massive spider is just chilling on the ceiling, watching them like their dinner. Rolf tells everyone to be careful and they're all trying to step quietly when suddenly there's this creepy chittering sound getting closer. Taiho looks up just in time to see the spider grab one of the warriors with its fangs and yank him right off the ground. Taiho shouts a warning, but everyone's already frozen watching this thing chow down on their buddy. Rolf's really calm about it, commenting on how strange and big the spider is. Says the thing must have been starving to eat someone that fast and goes, well, he's done for. Taiho activates his dragon eyes and realizes they're in deep trouble. There's not just one spider, there are dozens crawling in from everywhere. He tells Rolf they're surrounded. The spiders start closing in and Taiho's forcing himself to stay focused. He scans them with his ability and figures out they paralyze prey with venom, but also spot their weakness. He activates some runic fang effect that sets his sword on fire and slashes at the ceiling, torching all the webs and spiders in one go. He yells for everyone to run and they don't need to be told twice. While they're sprinting, Rolf asks if Taiho's some kind of mage. Another warrior's worried about leaving the sword behind, but Taiho casually says he'll just make another one. Using his dragon eyes, Taiho leads them through the tunnels until they find a door. Rolf says this is it and rushes them inside. Taiho goes first, then another warrior, but the last guy hesitates and a spider slips through. Now it's 3 against 1 spider in close quarters. Rolf and the other guy wrestle the door shut while Taiho draws a new sword and takes care of the spider with one clean hit. Everyone was gasping for breath like they just ran a marathon. Taiho asks if this is really the control room and they head to the center. Rolf confirms it's the emergency control chamber. Makes sense, it was so hard to reach since being super secret means no guards. Rolf pulls out this circular key and sticks it in the main device, saying they need to open the gate to save their troops. The key activates and his blinding light bursts out with a mechanical voice going, "Emergency control key recognized." Then some girl descends from above, calling herself Black Caster, asking how she can help. Rolf and the other warrior just stand there drooling while Taiho's like, "Weren't we in a hurry literally 5 seconds ago?" He tells Rolf to snap out of it and actually talk to the AI girl. Rolf asks her to open the fortress gate, but she starts opening a wrong door behind them instead. After correcting her, Rolf declares mission success and suggests they hang out and chat with the girl while waiting for their army to take the fortress. Just then, the AI girl warns them that someone's coming. Something massive is approaching and Taiho's terrified, wondering how anything could break through that thick metal door. Rolf points out there were tons of spiders outside, but Taiho realizes whatever this is has already killed them all. The door explodes open and Red Eyes storms in looking absolutely furious. This beast is growling threats, saying he's going to wipe them out right here. The trio freezes up because when a giant monster crashes your party, that tends to happen. Taiho activates his warrior sword Sava and charges, thinking of Helda. Rolf and the other warrior follow, but Red Eyes is way too fast. spins his hammer with crazy speed and absolutely demolishes the warrior next to Taiho, launching him into the wall so hard it cracks the stone. The monster's confused, asking where the little one went when Taiho comes diving down from above using his Storm Saga with a blade aimed at Red Eye's skull. But the beast sees him coming, drops the hammer, and unleashes his claws. Taiho realizes too late this was a trap. Red Eyes was waiting for exactly this move. Mid-air, the creature catches him and delivers what can only be described as a tombstone piledriver straight into the ground. Rolf screaming in horror as the floor craters and Taiho just lies there motionless. The next thing you know, Taiho is floating in the sky, wondering what this weird feeling is, and when he opens his eyes, he sees a blinding light. He thinks this is death, then he sees that the red eye is about to stun him and he thinks now I'm really going to die. Meanwhile, Rolfie's standing there with his bow drawn and fires this flaming arrow that wraps around the monster. The monster screams as fire eats its skin while Rolfie yells at Taiho to hang in there. The monster spins around absolutely furious, and Squeers is going to kill that annoying fly. For a second, it's looking back and forth between Rolfie and Taiho like it can't decide who to murder first, and that's all the time Taiho needs to play dead. He's lying there thinking if he moves even muscle he's toast, if he stays perfectly still, so the monster decides to ignore the motionless guy and charges at Rolfie, who's getting ready to go down fighting. While Taiho's still on the ground, he feels this fire in his whole body and everything hurts, but something inside him is roaring that he's still breathing. He gets up and Red Eyes doesn't even notice. Taiho ignores all the pain and reactivates his storm power, then flashes forward and slices the monster's manhood clean off. Seeing this, even Rolf went, "Yo dude, this is a bit much," and told him to end that poor dude's suffering. Taiho walks over slowly and apologizes before activating his warrior sword saga, but then something crazy happens inside him. His hands start glowing and his massive metal hammer appears while the system cheerfully announces he's unlocked a new saga called Skull Crusher. Taiho slams the hammer down so hard it shakes the entire room. Rolfie and the third warrior rush over and the warrior is screaming with excitement that Taiho actually did it and Indu has won. Rolfie's staring at Taiho like his brain is still processing what just happened when another notification pops up saying Taiho leveled up and his costed sync is at 7%. Then they hear to report that the Black Fortress has been captured and Valhalla won. Rolfie and the others grab Taiho in this massive group hub while yelling that the war is over. So the legendary Red Eyes, who is the enemy army's final boss, gets taken down by the kid nobody expected anything from. Cut to the battlefield where some warrior named Brack is holding up the head of the last boss monster, and with that, this siege had come to a successful end. Meanwhile in the sky, the Raven was watching everything, seeing the Brack dude in action. He wonders why Reskrid seems way more interested in our boy. Back at the celebration, Rolfie's carrying Taiho on his shoulders while warriors shout his name because the nobody kid just did the impossible. A Valkyrie shows up announcing it's time to celebrate, and everyone goes wild because brutal eras are officially over. Taiho steps away from the crowd and stares up at the sky when Rolfie asks if he's okay. Taiho says that he's in serious pain and Rolfie says he's lucky to be alive since he looked pretty dead lying there motionless. Before Taiho can respond, Siri shows up with a smile, asking if they'll accept a drink from her, and Rolfie doesn't hesitate for a second, saying it would be an honor and he's always wanted to drink with her. Taiho thinks it's a smooth move trying to flirt in broad daylight, but that more warriors crowd around, all wanting drinks with Siri too. She opens a barrel and starts pouring while shouting a toast to Valhalla. On the other side of the party, Rolf's got a whole crowd gathered around him retelling the entire battle like he's doing play-by-play commentary, going into every detail of the spider fight, the chaos, and most importantly, Taiho's war crime against the Red Eyes family jewels. As he said, every dude in the room collectively felt the pain that poor bastard went through while our nutcracker of Valhalla was just watching from the sidelines. His attention keeps drifting to Siri, who's laughing and looking totally carefree. He's thinking, she really does know how to smile like that. The party gets wilder with references flying around that nobody understands. Then the dwarves start acting weird, which is saying something since they were already drunk. That's when Raskrid shows up, telling Taiho he's got a visitor. It's the beautiful Helda, and the warriors immediately start cheering and making comments. As Taiho and Helda walk off together, everyone's shouting stuff like "make the most of it, kid," and we're jealous. The dwarves try to keep the party going, but Raskrid shuts it down, telling everyone to get some sleep because they got an important mission in the morning. Cut to dawn and all the warriors are assembled. Taiho looks like he got hit by a truck, yawning like he didn't sleep at all. Naturally, this makes him a prime target for interrogation. Rolf asks if he enjoyed himself last night with wide eyes. Another warrior wants to know if it was an all-nighter. The third guy's grinning, asking, "So you have fun, boy?" Taiho's clearly embarrassed. He has this sheepish smile and says he can't talk about it, it's a secret. Before the teasing can get worse, Siri arrives for the mission briefing. She explains today's mission is special. They're hitting the eastern side of the Black Fortress, specifically some old dwarven mines. When enemies took the fortress, the dwarves sealed the mines and went into hiding. Nobody's heard from them since, so the mission is to investigate and assess the situation. Taivo asks Rolf if dwarves are like the grumpy warriors from games. Rolf says dwarves never say no to a drink, then adds with a straight face that he hasn't had a drink in ages despite literally drinking the night before. Then he mentions dwarves are so manly even the women have beards. Taivo's thinking, thanks for that info, not interested. Reskrid mentions they'll use special transport called Black Lightning to get there and everyone's faces turn to pure dread. Flashback to the previous night in Taiho's tent where Helda calls him for a private talk. She gives him this special necklace called the Apple of Gold pendant that enhances healing speed and gives him a fragment of the golden apple with incredible properties that heals wounds, neutralizes toxins, and breaks curses. She kisses his forehead and blesses him in the name of Idun. Back to the present, Taivo's buried in snow in front of the massive black fortress. He pushes himself out looking irritated, rumbling that he knew this trip wouldn't be normal but being launched like a corpse in a coffin was too much. Looking around, he sees his teammates sprawled in the snow, not moving, and wonders if they're dead. Then he remembers Helva's necklace must be why he's still standing. The thing's stronger than he thought. The group reassembles at the fortress entrance and heads inside. The place is dark and forbidding. Someone comments that dwarves must really hate sunlight. Ciri announces that they're warriors of Valhalla sent by Valkyrie Riskrid. The air feels heavy, like it's holding centuries of silence and sorrow. Taivo activates his dragon eyes to scan the area and warns something's wrong. There are movements, lots of figures above them. Ciri reacts instantly, ordering everyone to raise shields just as arrows rain down from above. The warriors shield themselves as best they can. Then Taiho looks. This can't be right. They're dwarves, but they're undead zombies. The group freezes and Rolf mutters, zombies? Why the hell are there zombies here? The only explanation is the dwarves didn't survive and got turned into the undead somehow. Rolf asks Taiho if he's sure about what he's seeing. Taiho confirms it with his Sada active. He can see them clearly, even in the darkness. He starts listing off their weird names like Ghost Dwarf of Cinema, Ghost Dwarf Rapper, and Lord Vocal Ghost Dwarf. Man, these zombie dwarves have the most random titles ever. But there's no time to process the absurdity because one of the zombie dwarves had drawn their bows once again. Ciri yells for them to hold formation and not let any gaps form. Someone shouts that their shields are breaking and won't hold much longer. More zombie dwarves appear on the higher levels, ready to rain more arrows down on them. Things are looking pretty grim when suddenly a different dwarf shows up. This one's actually alive and holding what looks like a homemade Molotov cocktail. He throws it and creates this wall of fire that blocks the zombie's sight and stops the arrow barrage. He tells them to follow him, and without thinking twice, the group obeys. They slip through this narrow shaft, with Rolf getting stuck because of course he does, but he manages to wiggle through. Taivo comes last, and when they finally catch their breath, they're looking at this vast underground area that's eerie as hell. The living dwarf starts explaining what's going on. Everything they saw up there is the work of a vampire who showed up at sunrise. He explains the obvious. If a vampire kills or bites you, you become a zombie. He describes this creature as enormous with gray skin, a bald head, and eyes black as night, and adds that dude is more of a physical powerhouse than a magic user. Ciri asks if he's out for revenge because if so, they should regroup first. But the dwarf says it's not just about revenge, it's something much bigger. Recently in the mines they discovered something called Alti. Everyone's stunned and Rolf asks what that is. The dwarf explains it's the metal of the gods, the strongest material in existence that amplifies rune powers and absolutely cannot fall into enemy hands. Someone says he already knew that and confirms it's legendary stuff. When Rolf asks for an example, the dwarf goes, Thor's hammer was made with Alti. He points to the fortress, saying at the top sits the sacred anvil where the vampire is most likely hiding. The dwarf explains that UNT can only be refined by the starlight and moonlight. Taivo asks how they would get any light when they live underground. The draft explains that the top of the tower is connected to the surface and a part of the ceiling can be opened. Taivo thinks this information could change everything, and since it was noon, the weakest hour for the vampire, they push into the fortress. They barely got past the entrance when a horde of zombies were chilling, playing poker, and drinking their undead minds out. But as soon as they saw them, the shit got real and the undead swarmed them. Ciri's commanding from the front while the dwarves use wind manipulation to create tornadoes that launch the undead into the air. Meanwhile, the demolition expert dwarf is using his cannon to blast open a path. Taiho, Ciri, and Rolf advance toward the room with the sacred anvil. As soon as they cross the main gate, everything goes eerily silent. Taivo comments that everything seems way too easy. Taiho points to the ceiling above the anvil. A shadowy figure is watching them. The vampire was already there waiting. Taivo examines the creature and mutters it's smaller than the other monsters, but before he can finish that thought, something horrifying happens. In a blink, the vampire shreds through two warriors who are getting their arrows ready. Blood sprays across the stone floor and Taiho freezes in terror. He tries to move, but the vampire appears right beside him, speaking in his cruel voice, demanding to know how they entered and claiming the treasure is his. Yeah, so much for the vampire's weakest hour theory. The vampire laughs and raises his claws toward Taiho, then turns to threaten the rest of the group, warning them not to move or he'll start collecting heads like trophies. Siri notices Rolf and 2 others are unharmed, while Rolf mentions his bow got destroyed. The vampire keeps staring at Taiho, saying warriors this strong shouldn't die, they've made perfect soldiers in his undead army. Taiho was thinking to himself how dying would be better than turning into a zombie, and he was about to do something stupid when suddenly an arrow comes flying, but that bastard catches it before it could hit him. Before that bastard could do anything, the dwarf fired his cannon, sending a wave of fire straight into the vampire's chest. Pretty solid hit, but not enough to do real damage. With supernatural strength, this thing just pushes to the flames. Siri orders her warriors to form a shield wall, but with one blow, the vampire scatters them like bowling pins. The dwarves launch more attacks, even pulling off some triple whirlwind combo moves, but the vampire tanks it all effortlessly. Behind all the chaos, Taiva spots an opening above a hatch that could let sunlight in. Our boy pulls a lever and boom, a shaft of noon sunlight pours into the chamber and hits the vampire directly. The creature screams as his skin starts turning to stone and drops to his knees. Rolf asks Taiho if he knows how to kill a vampire. Tai was thinking out loud, maybe a stake through the heart or cutting off the head. Standard vampire elimination procedures, folks. But before they can try their method, the vampire bastard starts chanting something, summoning the strong clouds, and just like that, the sun vanishes and gets replaced by cold moonlight. The group thinks, well, let's just bash this bastard's head and gets ready to finish the job, but it's too late. The vampire's body disintegrates into a swarm of bats that swirl around the hall. The bats fuse back together, forming this monstrous colossal bat with massive wings and eyes full of rage. This was phase 2-time Beatty. The vampire calls out, promising them pain for their insolence. His mouth opens and starts spitting balls of acid that melt whatever they touch. Taiwa shouts for everyone to get to the corners, but these dumb barbarians just stand there frozen and end up as nothing but bones. Taiho, desperate for a solution, takes a deep breath and activates his saga. He leaves straight at the beast, going full frontal assault mode. The bat laughs, asking if Taiho is stupid or just suicidal, then prepares another acid blast. But Taiho is faster now, dodges the attack, and slashes at the creature. The hit lands, but his sword shatters against the thing's hardened skin. Now he's speechless and vulnerable, balancing on the beast's back. The vampires told Taiho to get off. Taiho replies he's too high up to jump, and before this could turn into how to train your vampire, the vampire goes, let me drop you to the ground, and we can resume our fight. As they starts to head down, the whole chamber starts glowing, and Taiho realizes that he was getting a new saga. The vampire shouts at Taiho to stop messing around and come down. Taivo closes his eyes, focuses, and activates his new power Dragon Commander. With this ability, he can tame and ride any creature, griffins, dragons, or bats. Apparently it's one of the abilities of Kosted, who was also a legendary dragon rider, and thanks to his ability, his bat is under our boy's control, and that bastard turns into this adorable little bat that has everyone standing around in awe. Even Siri is staring with this strange look like she wants to pet the thing. Suddenly, it morphs back into its monstrous form. The vampire is absolutely furious, screaming that they'll pay for humiliating him. Man, I can't really blame the guy. Going from terrifying apex predator to adorable pet probably wasn't great for his ego. Taiva feels a chill, but Siri shouts for everyone to get ready, they have to finish this. Tidal quickly mounts the bat again, using his Sawma to temporarily turn it back into cute mode. He lays out the plan, he'll deal as much damage as possible, then they'll finish the job together. He soars into the sky on the bat's back as the first rays of sun start burning the beast, and then Teo gives him the order to crash at full speed into the ground. He leaps off just before it smashes into the earth. Then he activates his warrior saw the Skull Crusher and delivers a brutal blow to its head, but that bastard bat was still breathing though. With the dwarf's not done, he hurls a pack of explosives onto the bat. The explosion was big, but it was still not enough, so Rolf just casually throws the skeleton dude from earlier into the fire like it's the obvious thing to do. Taivo mutters to himself about how these guys are crazy to carry something like that. That's when Rolf turns and asks Taiho if the bastard bat was dead or not. Taiho uses his saga and confirms that it was down for good. Now that the bat was gone, the group turns to the altar, and they are now standing before the anvil. The dwarf opens the chest and pulls out the so-called medal of the god as he did. Taiho, Rolf, and Syria collectively went. We risk our lives for this tiny-ass fragment. Doesn't seem like something worth all this trouble. The dwarf snaps stains enough to craft a powerful ring. Such valuable metal can't be left unguarded, so he hands it to Siri, trusting Valhalla to protect it. Siri accepts it with honor. Now that the official business is done, Rolf asks the dwarf if they are now going to drink, and the dwarf says, isn't that the obvious thing to do? We are going to drink our brains out now, but Siri reminds them they have to return. The dwarf says he can't just let them leave empty-handed. That's against the dwarf's tradition and leads them to a vault full of magnificent weapons. As he opens the vault, everyone picks a weapon or armor for themselves, seeing that Taiho wasn't acting all greedy like the others. Isik tells Taiho to choose one weapon for himself. Taiho doesn't hesitate and activates his dragon eyes to scan them all. Something catches his interest and we see his new gear leader cloak. The only blue item in the vault is called Falcon Wings, which is light, durable, and has a special ability. The dwarf teaches Taivo a chant to unlock it. The scene cuts to our boy, now a falcon soaring high above the Mount Taihans. He was passing over the enchanted coffins where his companions rest, returning to Black Castle. After landing, the group heads straight to report to Valkyrie Riskrid. Ciri explains to her what had happened and how a single vampire had taken over the dwarven mines, and together they managed to defeat him and protect the Ulti-Metal. Riskrid looks at the divine metal fragment and says they achieved something incredible, while inwardly wondering why the hell this thing is so small. She says, "Mission complete. Well done, people." She adds that the fallen warriors will rise again as legendary steel warriors, but for now they've earned some rest with that. The group heads out. Rolf, being Rolf, already has plans. He asks Taiho if he's up for a drink. Taivo laughs and shakes his head while thinking to himself, "Are you crazy, you bastard? I'm tired, I want the rest." Before he can leave, Ciri approaches with a smile, congratulating him and saying in her eyes, "Taivo contributed the most in that battle." Taivo gets embarrassed and says none of it would work without their help. He is thinking about how that vampire bastard was a true monster that even managed to block out the sun. Then he opens his system window and the surprise says the best part is yet to come. He just unlocked a new saga, earned several runes, and increased his synchronization rate to 9%. Can't wait to see what happens when it hits 10%. The scene shifts to Valkyrie Reagan patrolling the outskirts like she usually does, but this time she ventures farther than normal. Everything seems calm until this strange sound echoes through the Mount Taihans. She follows the noise, and when she discovers the source, her eyes widen in alarm. She immediately activates her Sava-swarming wing cloak, knowing getting closer would be deadly, turns around and flies back as fast as possible. When she returns, she heads straight to Raskrid and reports her findings, telling her that an army was on its way to invade them. Raskrid orders urgent reinforcements to be sent to Valhalla. Meanwhile, Ciri was playing her part as the party pooper, ordering everyone back to quarters. She wants them well rested for what's coming. The warriors obey but aren't happy about it. Taiho stays behind in a corner focused on training. He believes the cloak he received has more potential than just travel or escaped, so he's determined to learn what else it can do. The next morning starts with a shot of the thick thighs. A new Valkyrie arrives, Ingrid from the Nord region, with 500 low-ranked warriors. Adding them to Black Castle's 2,000 defenders brings the total to 2,500, but the enemy report is grim, more than 6,000 beasts on the opposing side. Faced with overwhelming odds, Riskrid says their only option is holding the fortress at all costs. They'll rely on defensive magic as a final line of resistance. These three were ready to protect Asgard and the Nine Realms. Everyone had taken their spot on the wall, ready for the battle, and before long the enemies arrived. Some bastard was screaming Thor's name, some Odin's, and others of the respected gods, and were preparing for the battle. Ciri orders the troops to be ready to shoot, and our boy was thinking that for this battle he needs a ranged weapon, so he whips out a crossbow for himself. The enemy army finally makes it to the walls, and suddenly the sky turns black with arrows. A ton of creatures drop instantly, but the tough ones, they just get back up, raise their shields, and keep charging like nothing happened. Before long, they're right at the base of the walls, tossing up giant hooks and climbing, but the defenders are ready. One guy laughs, "They're not climbing up here," while another smirks and dumps boiling water down on the poor idiots trying. Huge stones get rolled off the walls, smashing anyone dumb enough to get close. Rolf is letting explosive arrows fly while Ciri and Taivo push forward, slicing through anyone who makes it up. Then the sky darkens, not from arrows this time, but a shadow. They look up, and there it is, a dragon diving in like a nightmare with wings. Fire pours out of its mouth, blasting the battlefield, and for a second it feels like game over. Chaos everywhere, people screaming, flames spreading. But then Valkyrie Reagan steps up like the absolute boss she is. She slams her spear into the ground, activating glowing runes, and suddenly a giant barrier forms over the whole castle, a shining dome that blocks the dragon's fire. For a moment, everyone actually breathes again. That relief doesn't last though. The beasts regroup and start hammering all their attacks at one weak spot in the shield. Regan yells that if they keep it up, the barrier won't hold for long. That's when Taivo knows it's his turn. He runs straight to the edge of the wall and jumps off like he's lost his damn mind. Mid-air, he yells out the chant, "Power of the Falcon, take me to the skies." In an instant, the dude transforms into a falcon. With some slick flying, he slips past the barrier before anyone can blink. It's behind the dragons and shouts, "Here I go." Then he dives down fast and furiously. Right before impact, switches back to human form. Without hesitation, he kicks some poor beast rider off one of the dragons and jacks his ride. That trading from last night really paid off. This dragon's his now. He activates the Dragon Commander Sada and turns the dragon cute like he did with the beast. He then remembers, "I need a spear," so he activates his Warrior Saga, expecting something cool, but getting a bamboo spear instead. Taivo launches his attack using Dragon Fire to strike down the others. Quickly eliminates two more enemies. The rest get mad and charge at him, but his movements are impossibly fast. One by one, he brings them down easily. From below, his allies are cheering. Even Regan is stunned by Taiho's skills. But before anyone can get too comfortable, a new threat emerges, a legion of harpies flying toward them. There were so many of them, and Taiho knows that he won't be able to take them down alone, so he orders the dragon to head down and pick up Siri. She activates her saga. The witch's arrow never misses its mark as she conjures countless arrows and not one misses, killing one harpy after the other. On the battlefield, even the Valkyries are in awe, seeing our boy single-handedly changing the tide of this battle. They know that he contributed the most in this battle to his harpy massacre had given them hope. But that hope fades fast when something massive slams into earth from the sky. The shock rattles everything, and Siri and Taiho were trying to find out what that thing was. When dusk clears, they see a towering creature with glowing blue eyes and white fur. Kai, with his dragon's eyes, sees the name of that giant bastard in man. That thing was one of Loki's, and that giant thing was the boss of this stage. The warriors, seeing that Skysper-sized problem, went, "Hey, not fair, how the hell are we supposed to defeat that thing?" But the cut Super Singly didn't care as he started stoning them. Meanwhile, in the sky, Siri told Taiho that they should retreat and asks Taiho to drop her near Rolf down on the bad hellfield. His giant had grabbed something massive and was trying to break the barrier while Regan was trying her best to hold him off. She started chanting using the power of runes, but each of the giant's blow packed so much power that the shock from it was knocking out the warriors, and that bastard was throwing one attack after the other, and his last one really packed some serious punch and cracked the barrier. Holding the barrier for so long, Regan's running out of energy, so Rasser joins her, adding magic to the barrier. She asks Regan if she's okay. Regan nods as she says that at this rate it's only a matter of time before the barrier falls. Rasser nods, saying that they are not suited to face an enemy of this level, with only the lowest class warriors, as she mutters how all of this would be over if she could use that power. She wanted to use the true power of the Valkyrie. She then prays to Odin, saying how they can't beat this giant with just the lowest class warriors, and asks for permission to unleash their combat seal. As she prayed, a raven flew above the giant's head. Through its eyes, Odin watched the battle unfold. You can see how the Valkyries were struggling. That Dan one-eyed bastard refused to unleash their seal. He told them that this battle is a test, reminding them that Valhalla needs strong warriors. Before Rasgrid could even respond, Brack stepped forward. He let out a war cry so loud it shook the ground, rallying everyone around him. This dude wasn't just any fighter, he was from Thor's Legion. The moment he roared, the others roared back, their fear burning away. Without hesitation, Brack launched himself straight at the giant. His axe came down like lightning, slamming right into the monster's forehead. He barely left a cut, but the crowd went wild. Even the smallest scratch meant the beast could bleed. The warriors charged, screaming their gods' names. The giant didn't see it that way. Roaring, it swung an arm and sent Brack flying like he was a bug. Meanwhile, Taiva landed back on the wall, dropping Siri off right by Rolf. Siri turned to him quickly, explaining her plan. She and Rolf would open a shot. Taiho just needed to get back in the sky and wait for his chance. Taiho looked at the giant, spotting that tiny cut on its forehead. It wasn't much, but it sure pissed the thing off. Siri laid out her plan to Rolf. They used the siege ballista and fire together, both of them activating their sagas. Rolf's eyes went wide. Are you insane? No one's ever tried that. But Siri stood firm. Risky or not, it was their best shot. High above, Taiho waited, eyes locked on the giant. But the monster's gaze suddenly locked on him. For something so massive, it moved shockingly fast. Its huge hand shot out, and before Taiho could react, smack, he was swatted out of the sky. He hit the ground hard, tumbling like a ragdoll, until he slammed against the base of the wall. The Valkyries gasped. Rasgrid screamed his name and bolted toward him. The others yelled after her, but she didn't slow. She knew Taiho was their last hope. What she found was bad. His leg was twisted at a sick angle, and his body was broken from the fall. The beasts outside were gathering. Taivo tried to move, but nothing worked. His vision blurred, death creeping in again. That everything shifted. He wasn't on the battlefield anymore. He was at a table, sitting across from Helda, their home peaceful. She smiled at him and told him to eat fast. On his plate were glowing golden fragments, the apple pieces she'd given him. Taivo took a bite. Golden light surged through him. Even the Valkyries on the wall froze. The aura he gave off wasn't just strong, it was divine. Rasgrid whispered in disbelief. How could a low-ranking warrior shine with the power of a god? Taino stood, his body glowing like the sun. Every wound healed, every ounce of pain gone. The beasts hesitated, fear creeping in. Taiva lifted an arm and with a single motion lasted them back like they were nothing. On the wall, Siri shouted to ask if he was alright, reminding him that they were ready on their side. Taiva looked up and said that he was feeling fine, but now he has no ride and his cloak alone wouldn't get in high enough. That's when Rasgrid appeared behind him. She told him not to worry, saying that he can ride her. I'm not jealous at all, damn it, I want to ride a Valkyrie. Meanwhile, the warriors were throwing themselves at the giant. They were scaling the giant like ants and started biting down, and the giant gave them the ant treatment, swatting them away. Taiho, on the other hand, was busy blushing, asking Rasgrid what she meant by ride her. That's when she uttered the word Draco and transformed into a white dragon. She now understands why Odin had refused their request, because this battle isn't theirs. This battle belongs to Taiho and his group, and she is sure that they'll win because they are strong. With that, Taiho hops on as he apologizes for what's about to happen, and she just says, "Hold on." Without warning, she takes off. They rise way above the battlefield, while down below, Ciri's yelling to Rolf that it's showtime. She adjusts this massive siege ballista and Rolf gets behind it, pulling back the enormous frame. The weapon starts glowing with the power of both their sabas combined. Down on the ground, Brack is bleeding and battered but refuses to fall. He invokes his Saba, Son of God. Power explodes around him, giving him tenfold strength. At that exact moment, Ciri and Rolf's sagas merge and they name their attack the Huntress Witch's Arrow that never misses. Bit of a mouthful, but hey, it gets the job done. Brack strikes first, leaping up and slamming his axe right into the giant. Then, as the giant opens his mouth to roar in pain, Rolf and Ciri fire their shot. This giant arrow flies like it's alive and dives straight into the giant's open jaws. It detonates with this thunderous boom that probably woke up half the continent. The giant staggers, howling, and then starts to fall. Raskrid sees the opening and dives down. She tells Taiho to get ready, this is their chance. And Taiho activates both his sabas at once, naming it the Saba of the Warriors' Storm Charge. As Raskrid dives through the air incredible speed, a tornado forms around them, making them even faster and heavier. Their targets clear the open wound on the giant's forehead. The impact was absolutely devastating and the earth shook beneath them. After such a brutal victory, they throw a grand banquet to honor the warriors' efforts. Laughter and conversation fill the air while on the central stage, the Valkyries show up, ditching their armor for flowing white dresses. Regan lifts this massive horn filled with mead and calls for attention. She invites the warriors to lift their cups for a toast to celebrate, and the crowd erupts in a roar. Regan says it's an honor to stand among them tonight, celebrating such a monumental victory. Then she raises her hand for silence and apologizes. Unfortunately, she can't personally serve every warrior since there are only 3 Valkyries and way too many soldiers, so she announces that her sister, the Ice Princess Raskrid, will honor 2 warriors who contributed the most in today's battle personally, and the person in question isn't happy about it. She already wants to beat up these bastards. So Raskrid calls forth the first warrior, Brack of Thor's Legion, and the crowd goes absolutely wild. They're dubbing this dude Son of God and one-man army. Raskrid pours his mead looking all stoic and professional. Then she calls the second name Taiho from the Legion of Idun. The cheers get even louder, but there's this weird energy now. And Seven's cheering for his heroics. Everyone was making jokes about how he got visited by a Valkyrie and literally rode one into battle. Someone yells, "That's my guy," and everyone's cracking up. Raskrid's face is getting more annoyed by the second listening to all this chatter about her personal business. Before things get too awkward, Ingrid jumps in saying that both warriors are officially promoted to lower-class warriors. Taiva's just standing there in shock, remembering that Jorn used to have this rank. Finally feels like he's getting somewhere in life. Regan raises her horn again, shouting it's time to drink and party. Brack and Taiho do their first official bro toast standing side by side. Taiva looks around at everyone chanting his name, thinking, yeah, this feels right. So naturally, he chugs his entire drink in one go like a champion, but turns out our hero is a total lightweight, gets absolutely hammered immediately, but doesn't care because he's living his best life. Meanwhile, in the shadows, 2 mysterious figures are having their own little villain conference. One asks if that's the famous Taiho who'll awaken divine power. The other dude goes, yeah, it's impressive, but my kids could totally do that too. Then he sighs and says that he'll help him out since they had asked for it, but just this once. Fast forward 1 week and Taiho's finally got his own place, a cute little cabin that comes with a promotion package. He's sleeping like a baby when suddenly the ground starts shaking. He bursts outside thinking, what fresh hell is this now? Standing right at his doorstep is this cloaked figure with lightning crackling around him. The cloaked dude is just standing there staring at Taiho, all ominous and dramatic. Taiho's like, oh, who are you and why are you having a late show in my front yard? The mystery man doesn't answer, instead asking if Taiho's the famous lower-class warrior who beat 2 commanders and helped take down a giant, then adds that he's heard Taiho being called a hero, but you, my children, could do better than that. He slowly pulls back his hood and draws a sword. Taiho activates his dragon eyes and immediately regrets it. This dude's power level is off the charts, maybe even stronger than the Valkyries. Then he sees the name and nearly has a heart attack. Ragnar Lothbrok, the legendary Viking warrior, just showed up at his house. Ragnar announces he's here to fight and wants to test what Taiho's really made of. Taiho's thinking, did he really just knock on my door at whatever o'clock in the morning to demand a death match? Tries to stay calm, asking if there's maybe a reason for this impromptu boss battle request. Ragnar's response, why would I need to give a reason to someone about to die? So they head to this makeshift battlefield and Taiho summons his sword while Ragnar's just standing. Taiho activated his Warrior of the Storm saga for that speed and power boost. He launches what looks like a solid attack at Ragnar, who casually blocks it with one hand. His smirk gets wider, like, is that really all you got? Taiho gets annoyed and tries again, going faster this time, thinking maybe speed will work where power failed. But nope, to Ragnar it's all the same. He effortlessly dodges and blocks everything. Taivo's starting to think this guy can predict attacks or something, so he decides to get sneaky and zips around behind Ragnar, hoping to catch an off guard. But before he can even swing, a brutal hit is followed by a slap so powerful Taivo doesn't even see it coming, gets sent flying through trees, slamming into this massive trunk. Taivo's thinking this man is absolutely terrifying and realizing the power gap is way bigger than he thought. Without his divine blessing, he'd already be dead meat. Ragnar slowly walks over and starts giving this philosophical speech about how fallen warriors become warriors of steel and find eternal rest, so Taivo's got nothing to fear. Before Taivo can even react, Ragnar raises his sword and unleashes this brutal strike that splits the massive tree trunk behind Taivo in half. But Taivo used his cloak to transform into a falcon at the last second, barely escaping with his feathers intact. Ragnar watches him fly higher and says, "If you're going to hit me, give it everything. I won't even move." Taivo doesn't hesitate, activates Storm Warrior again and dives down. Just before impact, he switches to Skull Crusher Warrior and this big warhammer materializes behind him. Even with this meteor hammer combo closing in, Ragnar doesn't budge. When it hits, the explosion shakes the earth with shockwaves going for miles and creates this massive crater. But somehow Taivo still missed his target. In a blink, Ragnar moved, dodged effortlessly and caught Taivo by the head. He told Taivo that his skills are impressive, but far from enough, and then he slams him to the ground. Now he was holding Taivo by the neck, asking if he could keep going, but dude doesn't wait for an answer before letting up his arm with murder energy and smacking Taivo across the face so hard it breaks everything nearby. Stands over him checking his handiwork like, "Yep, that'll do," then starts walking away muttering he expected better. But then golden light starts glowing behind him. Ragnar stops and turns, getting serious now. Taivo's back on his feet, glowing like a damn light bulb with divine power blazing around him. Ragnar admits the rumors were right. Taivo really can use god power. He says now he gets why Taivo's goddess has faith in him. He warns Taivo about using the divine juice carelessly, but before he could finish the sentence, Taivo collapses on the floor. Later, Taivo wakes up, seeing everything blurry. The first thing he spots is Helda kneeling next to him, looking worried as hell. She asks if he's okay. He asks what happened. She says she was freaking out he'd been out cold for hours. He starts telling her about this complete psycho who showed up wanting to murder him for no reason. Then he freezes mid-sentence. His heart nearly stops. Ragnar's leaning against the wall listening to every word with this "oh really?" expression. Ragnar asks with ice in his voice if that's how Taivo's been describing their little chat. Taivo's sweating bullets now. Before it gets too ugly, Helda jumps in. She points at Ragnar, saying he's going to be Taivo's new teacher. Taivo looks at her and goes, "Hell no, I already got you." Ragnar fires back that he never signed up to babysit some random kid and has way better things to do. She explains that since Taivo's already tapped into God mode, she can't teach him much more. Her stuff's all theory. He needs someone who actually knows how to use that power. Ragnar looks Taivo up and down and says it's almost insulting such a weak little twerp can use divine energy. Even his kids could pull that off easily. If this is all Taivo's got, there's nothing worth training. Helda says he'll change his tune real quick, maybe even beg to train Taivo, and tells Taivo to show off his saga and that Ragnar's trustworthy. Taivo's still confused, but pulls out this magic feather thing that displays sabas. The saga of the immortal warrior appears with all these glowing runes showing off the Dragon Knight legacy. Seeing this leaves Ragnar completely shook. The big tough Viking goes dead silent for once, finally asks what Taivo used to do before dying. Taivo way exceeded his expectations. Helda asked how strong Taivo could get if he maxed out his saga. Ragnar thinks hard and says maybe, just maybe, Taivo could reach Sigurd level. Helda explains that Sigurd basically means the strongest warrior in Valhalla. Helda stares Ragnar down, asking if he'll help Taivo reach that level. Ragnar wraps his arm around Taivo, saying absolutely he will. Helda warns him not to go overboard like he did before. With that, she bounces, officially dumping Taivo on Ragnar. Outside, Ragnar admits he's genuinely impressed. He never thought someone like Taivo could exist. His potential seems off the charts. The scene shifts to Ciri. She is smiling and meeting up with a teen. She turns to Rolf and he informs her that he too got promoted to the lower class warrior. He looks around asking if everyone's here. Ciri says that they are still missing one person. And right on cue, Taivo walks up with that calm little smile of his. Says it's good to see everyone again. Everyone's staring at him with pure admiration. And why wouldn't they? This is the warrior visited by a Valkyrie, the only guy to ever ride one. Taivo's getting all awkward under the attention and asks Ciri what exactly she told them about him. Ciri just grinned and glanced at Rolf and said it was all this bastard's doing. Just then someone asks if everyone's arrived and damn, it's a Valkyrie. Silver hair, emerald green armor, the whole deal. Her name's Gandor, warrior of the Elder Legion. She told everyone that this expedition is a small one composed of only inferior ranked warriors from the Ulur and Aimen legions and added that the expedition may be small, but they are not allowed to slack off. The warriors start protesting and say, "When has it ever been easy?" Gandor laughs along, telling them she can't let them slack off all the time. Taiva notices how relaxed and informal everyone is. It feels natural, human. Gander calls everyone together to explain the mission. When Rolf asks where they're going, her playful attitude drops completely, and she tells them that they're headed to Svartalfheim, the land of the Dark Elves, also called the Land of Eternal Night. Massive trees block out the sunlight and the ground is covered in rotting leaves. It's like walking into a forest that forgot what sunshine looks like. They step through the portal and Taiho immediately feels the difference. The air is thick and damp, everything's covered in shadow. Ganmer finally explains why they're here. The Dark Elves supply medicinal herbs to Valhalla, but one of them accidentally woke up a basilisk. Yeah, one of those king of serpents. The elves need help taking it down. She then mentions that for this mission they are deploying Silent White, and everyone gets excited. Taiho has no clue what that means, but figures it'll probably be as crazy as everything else that's happened to him. When he asks Ciri, she just tells him to wait and see. Then a pack of white wolves shows up. But these aren't regular wolves, they're huge. Everyone climbs on and starts riding through the forest. The wolves are incredibly fast but completely silent. Gander notices he's actually good at riding and compliments him. He thinks his dragon commander experience is finally useful for something besides flying. Ganmer tells Ciri she has business with the Dark Elf Council and puts her in charge of the mission. She says the wolves know the way anyway, then disappears into the trees. After hours of riding, they reach a hidden leaf village. A dark elf named Toller meets them and offers to guide them to the village chief. Taivo gets his first real look at Dark Elves' gray skin and silver hair, but he notices the locals don't seem too happy to see them. Lots of suspicious looks and whispered conversations. Kids are peeking out from behind doors like they're seeing aliens. Taivo activates his dragon eyes to check if anyone's dangerous. Most people show up as neutral, but Toller appears friendly. They arrive at Big Mansion and go through some tall gates into an empty hall. Toller opens a door and leads them to another room where there's this massive feast waiting. Servants standing behind chairs, food everywhere, and at the head of the table sits an elderly elf of the warm smile. This is Malice, head of the Molo family and village leader. Everyone starts sitting down. Rolf's already eyeing the drinks. Malice raises his cup for a toast and everyone looks at Ciri with puppy eyes since she usually doesn't allow drinking during missions. But she surprises everyone by saying one sip won't hurt after their long journey. The room celebrates and Taigal raises his cup to join in. Then he suddenly freezes. He shouts for everyone to stop and starts grabbing cups away from people before they can drink. He makes eye contact with Ciri and tells everyone to head for the door. Ciri orders everyone out, but Malice shouts to seal the doors. Taiva's dragon eyes show him the entry hall is full of enemies. Elven archers are ready to attack, but Ciri reacts fast, telling everyone to raise their shields just as arrows start flying down. They block the first wave, but Taiho sees elves moving to lock the exit. If that happens, they're tracked. He runs for the door and takes down 2 guards to keep it open. Malice is watching all this, wondering how his perfect plan went wrong. After taking down those guards, Taiho spins around and delivers this crushing kick that completely shatters the door. He yells for everyone to run, and they start booking it through the courtyard. But they're not safe yet. Ciri pulls out this golden whistle and blows it hard. From his shadows, the Silent Whites come charging in. She tells everyone to climb quickly. The Dark Elf archers are right behind them, getting ready for another wave of arrows. The arrows start flying, and that's when Taiho steps up with a plan. He rolls up his sleeves and there are these golden runes glowing on his arms. Turns out during his training with Helda, she drew those on his skin. It's called rune engraving, basically a way to channel magic. The power depends on how big and complex the runes are. Permanent tattoos would be too risky since there's only so much space on your body, so Helda gave him temporary ones that are perfect for training. But even temporary, they pack a serious punch. His skin starts glowing bright and Taiho shouts GANT. A golden aura explodes around him and the arrows aimed at him just get shattered in midair. The Dark Elves freeze up, looking completely shocked at what just happened. But then they hear footsteps and Malad comes charging and looking furious. He's yelling at his men, ordering them to not let them escape. Malice just collapses to his knees trembling, clutching his head and asking how everything went wrong when it was supposed to be perfect. The group finally gets far enough away from the village to stop and catch their breath. Some people are wondering if it's safe to rest here, but honestly they don't have much choice. Even the wolves are panting hard from that crazy sprint. And that's not the only thing they have to worry about, because even though they blocked most of the arrows, some still hit them. The wounds aren't going to kill anyone, but they could be a real problem if they have to fight again. As they start pulling arrows out of their bodies, someone sees this dark liquid mixed with the blood and decides to taste it. It turns out the arrows were coated with poison. One warrior asks Ciri if they can stop to treat the wounds properly, but she's already petting her wolf and shaking her head. They have to treat injuries while moving. Stopping now isn't smart, they need to find Valkyrie Gandor. Back at the mansion, Malice is still on his knees shaking when this figure surrounded by purple flames shows up. A voice says he failed. The old elf bows down low, voice trembling as he begs for mercy. Getting desperate, he starts yelling for power. He wants the basilisk's power and swears that with it nobody will be able to stop them. The thing just laughs and says no. But then the voice keeps going saying don't worry because they expect him to fail anyway. They had a backup plan ready. Cut back to the warriors who think they're getting away from danger. Rolf looks at Taiho and asks if he knew those elves were enemies because of his power. Taiho nods and thanks Siri for trusting him. If he tried to explain everything back there, it might have been too late. Siri gives him this soft smile and says it's normal to trust someone you fought beside, especially in life or death situations. But then her face completely changes. Her eyes go wide as something red starts spinning behind them, a portal opening. She yells for everyone to get ready, but before anyone can move, the warrior at the back gets stabbed by this huge blade. His body lifts up in the air as blood goes everywhere. The others can only watch. What makes it worse is whoever's holding that blade hasn't even come through the portal yet. One thing's for sure, the thing isn't human. Its skin is this gross green color that looks dead. Taiva's dragon eyes are still working and he sees something scary. This creature is a monster named Regenerator Marcos. Two warriors get angry and charge at him to get revenge for their dead friend. At first, the Oyster swords cut deep into the thing's chest, but that's exactly what Marcos wanted. With one move, both warriors are dead. 3 guys down in less than 10 seconds like they were nothing. Fear hits the group hard, but what really makes them shake is when the wounds start closing. The creature's skin heals completely without even leaving a mark. Siri shouts the Regenerator. She tells them to get on the wolves and run. But Marcos is faster. Before they can escape, he rushes forward, and these huge snakes come out of his arms. In seconds, they wrap around the wolves. The animals panic and throw all warriors off their backs. Siri jumps backward, barely missing a poisonous bite, but Marcos goes after her immediately. He moves fast and won't stop. Right before he attacks, Siri uses her power. Something's different, though her arrows glow red this time. More arrows appear around her, floating in the air. She fires them all at once. Every single one hits, tearing through Marcos' body in which should have killed him. But he doesn't even care. He jumps up and gets ready to attack while he's still in the air. Siri pulls out 2 daggers just in time to block his attack, but she's focused too much on his swords. She doesn't see the nasty claw that smashes into her face. The hit sends her flying and she passes out completely. Rolf sees everything happen. Before Marcos can finish Siri off, he uses his own power. He pulls out an arrow and fires it super close. The explosion shakes the whole area. Without thinking twice, Rolf grabs Siri and runs faster than he's ever run. He can feel Marcos behind him like death chasing them. Then suddenly Marcos stops. His eyes look at something behind him. Taiho is already attacking. The creature turns to block, and that gives Rolf the time he needs to get away. As he runs, he hears Taiho saying that from now on Marcos is his fight. The creature blocks the attack with his cocky grin like he saw it coming from a mile away. Then he raises his hand and more snakes shoot out, twisting toward Taiho. But Taiho's ready for it. He cuts them up with these crazy multi-directional slashes, shredding every single snake. Using the opening he just made, he rushes forward for another attack. But he notices something weird. The monster isn't even trying to defend itself. It's just taking the hits and letting its healing power do the work. So Taiva decides to switch things up. His golden glow lights up around him as he moves in closer. Without thinking twice, he lands this slash that goes straight through Marcos' body. The bright light makes everything look like a scene from a movie. From far away, Rolf watches with Siri, who's getting better. He yells at Taiho to be careful because even deadly hits won't stop this thing for long. They look at each other and the creature turns around. Baird has a deep cut in his stomach. But instead of being worried or in pain, this guy gets this smug smile on his face. To him, no attack is going to be enough. But Taiho just stands there with his golden glow still going strong. That actually makes the Regenerative think twice. In his head, Taiho remembers what Ragna taught him. He recalls this important lesson. The god's power isn't just for healing or getting stronger. When you use it right, it can shut down divine blessings and even cancel out special abilities, but he can't just keep using that power, so Ragnar told him that the smartest way to use it is to only turn it on for killing blows. That way Taiva doesn't get tired and makes sure each hit counts. Now the Regenerator's blood starts pouring out and Taiho was ready for round 2. Taiho takes a deep breath and gets into his fighting stance. Across from him, Marcos makes fists, his eyes burning with anger and worry. Both guys charge at each other, trying to end this fight once and for all. Their swords crash together like crazy. Sparks light up the dark. Marcos is getting pushed back. Rolf watches, totally shocked. He can't believe what he's seeing. Taiho is backing up an enemy that seemed impossible to beat. Even Siri's impressed but also worried. No matter how good Taiva's doing, he's fighting alone. And fighting alone means getting tired faster. Sooner or later his energy's going to run out, and when it does, he'll be in trouble. Siri runs toward him wanting to help however she can, and her gut feeling is right. Marcos sees an opening and in a fit of rage, wars before swinging with everything he's got. A deadly strike. Taiho sees it coming and throws himself backward just in time. If he had waited even 1 second, his head would have been gone. He jumps back, making space between him and the enemy. But he doesn't waste time. As soon as his feet touch the ground, he goes forward again. The Regenerator lifts his sword, getting ready for a downward strike, hoping to catch Taiho off guard. But Taiva's got a plan. As he moves forward, the golden glow around his body gets brighter. He's ready to finish this now. But there's something he doesn't see. The Regenerators set a trap. It happens super fast. His Taihol shoots out like lightning and stabs Taiho's stomach. He doesn't even have time to react. If not for Endu's blessing, he might have died right there. The regenerator doesn't wait. Running a Taiho, he lifts his blade, bringing it down hard, ready to finish it. Siri threw herself at the monster, blocking the strike at the last second. The blade barely misses Taiho, just grazing his side. Her move surprises Marcos. Siri says she doesn't have the power to hurt him, but she can push him back as many times as needed. Taiho sees his opening and puts everything into his next attack. He stabs the regenerator straight in the stomach, then leaps in the air and delivers a skull crusher that finally puts the bastard down for good. Looks like this regenerator won't be regenerating anymore. Back in the elf village, they're confused as hell. How could their supposedly unstoppable regenerator be dead? His guys are really determined to kill our boy, so the purple entity decides to let Malice use the basilisk. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Taiho is knocked out cold and everyone's trying to wake him up. Rolf turns to Siri, asking what they should do since Taiho's not responding. Should they wait around? Siri says she's got a bad feeling about this whole situation and orders the group to leave immediately. They need to get out of here and regroup with Gander as soon as possible. She adds that it's not necessary for everyone to meet up together. Jessica and they hear a sound that makes everyone's blood run cold. Rolf mutters, "The basilisk." Siri asks him to point in the direction, then orders the group to scatter and find Gandor. The warriors get all emotional, saying they'll meet up with them in Valhalla if things go south. Siri cuts short their emotional moment and tells them to move. Rolf asks what she's going to do about Taiho since he's still unconscious. She tells him to leave Taiho to her and get going. He wishes her good luck and bolts out of there. Siri crouches next to Taiho and activates her ability as pink light surrounds her. She's used her Saw the Wolf Witch and literally transforms into a wolf. She grabs Taiho and heads into the forest. Dambro is on the mission to ride him all. Time passes and Taiho's still knocked out when he hears a voice calling out for him. He thinks it's Hilda calling, but when he opens his eyes he sees Siri and she's right on top of him. So close it jolts him awake completely. His face goes red and he tries to speak, but the words come out all scrambled. Before he can say something stupid, Siri puts her hand over his mouth and tells him to stay quiet and not move. That's when he realizes they're surrounded by massive monsters everywhere. Siri explains she had to lie on top of him so her goddess's veil would hide them both, but any sudden movement breaks the spell, and if that happens, they're dead. Taito asks why she didn't just leave him and escape with the others. She goes quiet for a few seconds, looks at him, then looks away and says he has something special. Few warriors awaken that kind of power, and losing him would hurt Valhalla badly. Then she adds that she likes fighting beside him and wants to keep doing it. Her words hit Taiho hard. Reminds him of his old teammate who trusted him just like Siri does now. But this isn't a game anymore. The risks are real and can't let down people who believe in him. Before he can answer, Siri crosses her arms and sighs. She says she thought he'd never wake up and that she tried everything to get him up. Taiho freezes. Everything? His cheeks turn red again, but before his mind goes places, Siri's already scanning the forest, looking serious. Now that he's awake, it can move. She triggers her Sada again, turning into a giant wolf. Taito activates his Dragon Commander Saga, which affects Siri too, wrapping her in blue light and making her senses sharper. She can see dozens of creatures hiding in the trees. Normal-sized snakes attack all at once. Taivo cuts through several, but more keep coming in waves. Then he gets this chill down his spine. Something worse is coming. The ground shakes and trees get ripped up like twigs. Something massive was coming towards them. It's the basilisk from earlier. Siri immediately warns Taiho not to look into its eyes because it will freeze him up. The thing lunges and Siri dodges just in time while Taivo jumps to avoid the attack. She gets some distance and both turn to face the creature again, but it's already staring at them. The basilisk opens its mouth and thick green poison starts dripping from its fangs. Then it shoots a massive stream of that deadly stuff. Before it hits, Taimo raises his hand and activates the magic on his arm. The poison just evaporates, swept away by divine power. Siri jumps high above the beast and Taiho follows using his Storm Warrior Saga and launching off Siri's back for extra height. But he screws up. In midair, his eyes meet the basilisk's and the monster hits him with its paralyzing stare. For a moment, Taiho's body locks up in midair, but he's not giving up yet. He summons divine power again and it becomes this clash of wills. The basilisk's death stare against Taiho's god power. He sees his chance and activates his warrior's blade Sada and whips out a golden lance to obliterate that thing in one shot. Siri drops back into her human form, completely out of juice, while Taiho can barely stand on his feet. She suggests they rest, but before he can even nod, Taiva spots a sword stuck in the basilisk's corpse. He walks over and yanks it out only to find it's just the handle of a broken blade. Before he can curse his luck, Siri shouts that they're surrounded. They stand back to back, ready to defend themselves, but none of them had the energy to. Siri told Taivo to head back to safety, while she held off the monsters, but Taiho wasn't having it. He activated his runic magic and told her either they both were leaving here or none of them were. Both of them took the battle stance ready for the battle. The monsters attacked them from all sides. Taivo and Siri are taking them out one after the other, but these bastards have the number advantage, and if that wasn't enough, Another basilisk shows up, and right about now, Teo is cursing his fate when Siri delivers bad news. That bastard hadn't come alone this time, and right on his heel, the rest of the monsters show themselves. Now our boy is surrounded on all sides, and the situation's looking pretty bad. Siri's scanning around trying to find some way out, but there's nothing. Taya was watching the beasts, and you can see in his face that he knows what's up. Siri asks if he can still fight. Taivo doesn't answer. He tries calling on that divine power again, but nothing happens. He told her that he's got maybe 2 more Sabe uses left, and that's not going to be enough. They're basically screwed. But Taivo grips his sword tighter and gets into a fighty stance anyway. If he's going to die here, he might as well go down swinging. Siri grins and tells him now he's talking like a real warrior. If they're going out, they'll do it together without backing down. Both shout their gods' names and get ready. The monsters roar and charge, but then something moves behind them. The silent whites show up quietly. Then this voice calls out, saying you're here to help. It's Rolf, and he's not alone. Someone dives from above and cuts a monster clean in half with one strike. Where they land, you see it's Valkyrie Genbor looking ready for war. But before anyone can celebrate, she yells to watch out. A basilisk comes at Taivo crazy fast, and he's too worn out to even lift his sword. All he can do is watch, but then something happens, and that thing drops dead, cut in half. Behind it stands someone new spinning a blade and smiling. It's Ragnar. Says they're safe now because Heat and the others are here. Taivo shouts Ragnar's name, grinning with relief. Ciri's eyes go wide. She whispers Ragnar's name and her face turns red, and Ciri is in her Fangirl mode. Taiho looks at her and mutters, who knew that she had this side to her. The fight's not over though. Rolf uses his Sada and blasts one of the basilisks. Opens up a path for everyone to charge in and finish off what's left. Gandor and Ragnar cut through everything. In a few moments they took care of all the monsters. Then Ragnar says it's over and congratulates everyone. They all swarm him like kids meeting their hero. Some say it's an honor. Others can't believe they're meeting the real deal. Meanwhile, Ciri's just standing there frozen. Face red is staring at him. Meanwhile, Taito is standing there thinking, what's so great about this dude? Ganmer steps up and says the mission's complete. She then told Taiho that she knows that he killed the regenerator, and she'll report it back to the higher-ups while congratulating him for his feat, because taking down that regenerator was no joke. Then she adds with this sly look that someone with his talents won't go unnoticed. Man, he is catching Valkyries after Pokemon. As she said that, Taivo felt death glares coming from his back. All the other warriors are out here wanting to kill this bastard. Ganver whips up a portal and they portal back to Valhalla, where Helda examines the sword hilt that Taivo found. She says the runes are too damaged to read, but this thing's definitely unique. She can feel old war energy in it. Since he got nothing, Taiho decided to store the weapon because he had this feeling that this thing is something special. Helda then claps her hands and tells Teo that they should head back to the temple and report everything to Idun. They borrow a small boat and start heading to the temple. On the way, Helda mentions the goddess has a gift prepared for him. Our boy is excited to know what it is since he's only gotten small blessings before. He stands on the engraving on the floor, drops the golden apple and meals, and the goddess appears, all warm smiles. She read the report thanks to him. They messed up the giant's plans, beat a tough enemy, and even rode a beautiful warrior. That last part makes Taiho go red when the goddess laughs. She told him that she's got 2 gifts, but he can only pick one. First is a cloak from Olympus that turns him into a Pegasus. Second is a magic pouch that stores anything, no matter the size. Both are insanely valuable, he's got to choose. After thinking it over, Tangle picks the pouch. Helda's surprised, she thought he'd go for the cloak. But Taimo explains becoming a Pegasus wouldn't be much use without someone to fly with. Since he's the only one in his legion right now, it doesn't make sense. Plus, it's the basic gamer knowledge that one must always expend their inventory. Helda laughs, saying she doesn't exactly get what he means, but whatever. They head back and Helda tells him that starting today he'll have lessons with his new teacher and asks him if he is excited. Taiho just laughs awkwardly. Personally, he doesn't think highly of that bum, but in this world that guy is a legend, so he is kind of curious. Meanwhile, Ragnar was chilling back at Taiho's house, looking at the sky. He comments on the weather, saying that the weather was disgustingly nice today. The scene shifts and Taiho and Ragnar are sitting there chatting. Ragnar asks Teo how far he had gone with Hilda, and our boy turns all pink, asking him what he means by that, but that double-meaning bastard quickly changes his tone and says that he was talking about his progress and tells our boy that his head was filled with dirty thoughts, and Taiho just goes, "Look who is talking." Ragnar then gets up. He says that Hilda had asked him to teach him about divinity, but since Taiho is a rookie, he'll postpone that stuff for later and start with the basics, but he makes it clear that he won't be spoon-feeding him, and that he'll have to figure things out on his own, and without wasting a second, he told Taiho to bring in on the trade blows, and Taiho wasn't even able to keep up. Ragnar told Taiho to now hold back and show him everything he's got. He then told Taiho that sagas are the foundation of a warrior, and just because he has got the god's power doesn't mean he can slack off, and then started trash talking to piss off Taiho, and it worked. Taiho started attacking him recklessly, and the next thing you know, our boy was on the ground eating dirt. Ragnar told Taiho that there are two things that he needs to work on. The first was an offensive saga. As for an inferior rank warrior, he's got a lot of sagas, but most of them are of the support class. They are helpful, but don't pack a serious punch. As Taivo was thinking about what he should pick for his ultimate move, Ragnar told him the second thing he needs to do is look at all his sagas again. Taivo looks confused, so Ragnar explains his sagas are incomplete. Most low-rank warriors think their sagas are set in stone, that they evolve with the user. A saga is a story passed down through generations, and like any story, it changes depending on who's telling it. With that, he starts to walk away. He told Taivo that's enough for today, while reminding him not to forget anything before he goes. He has one more thing. He told Taiho to keep that divine aura running all day, eating, sitting, sleeping, whenever. If Taivo can pull that off, he'll boost both power storage and duration. Evening came. Helda was at his house cooking for him while Taivo was busy with his lessons with Ragnar. Seeing that stupid grin on his face, Ragnar asks Taiho if he has something to show to him. Taivo grins and activates his warrior's blade saga. A normal sword appears, and showing it off, he says that he usually summons this sword, then pulls out the broken hilt from the last mission. Activates his saga while holding it, and the broken weapon fixes itself into a full blade. Taiho explains when he holds the hilt and uses his saga, it takes on the relic stats, turning it into epic level gear. Ragnar is standing there thinking, what the hell is wrong with this dude? Is he really planning on using it as his ultimate move? He wonders. Maybe because he's from a different world, but the guy thinks completely differently from everyone else. While they're still processing this discovery, Helba shows up holding a scroll. She says Valkyrie Riskrid sent an urgent support request for him. She's investigating Alfheim and found weird activity going on. Tai was surprised to know that she has requested his presence personally, but then gets excited thinking that it's the perfect opportunity to test his new weapon. Seeing that stupid grin on his face, Helda pouts and asks him if he was really that excited to see Riskrid. Taivo realizes that he fumbled really hard and tells her that it's nothing like that, but Helda was still acting like a jealous wife. Then he screws up by asking if he can go now. Meanwhile, Ragnar was watching him, thinking to himself, this guy's a complete moron. The scene shifts to this dark, creepy place where some evil dude's watching everything through spiderwebs. His servant shows up saying the giants started moving forces around and Valhalla sent more warriors. This mysterious guy gives the most sinister smile and says he can't wait to see how fun things get. Later, Ty was back in Dark Elf Land, but this time he's got company. The Wu Legion got called in too. When they arrive, this huge muscular warrior walks right up to Taiho, going, "Sir, you're the famous Taiho. I've heard a lot about you. Guys from Odin's Legion, also lower rank, but he's running the show. He says he got 30 black horses ready since other legions sent people too." While they're riding through the dark forest, Taivo starts feeling weird. Something's off and he's thinking, why does this feel so uncomfortable? He says he'd way rather be riding a dragon or the Silent Whites. Suri hears that and cracks up laughing. Says look at him, already got fancy tastes like a real warrior now. But there's definitely something strange going on. Rolf looks clearly pissed off about something. Taivo notices and asks what's eating him. Suri rolls her eyes, saying they drag him back from vacation for this stupid mission. The muscle guy says they're almost at base, so speed it up. They're booking it when suddenly everything stops. Right in front of them, there's this massive pack of gnolls blocking the road. Dark nasty things with glowing red eyes staring through the shadows. As soon as Siri sees they're about to get cut off, she yells not to slow down. It charged straight into the pack, cutting through tons of them. If they'd hesitated even a second, they would have been completely screwed. They break through, but then this weird sound starts echoing everywhere. Someone shouts to look up and a squadron of harpies is diving straight down at them. Siri's slashing at harpies while Rolf's trying not to die, but he's struggling hard. Can't use his saga without his crossbow. Things are getting dicey when Taivo grabs his sword hilt. The harpies are circling them and golden light starts glowing from Taivo's body. Everyone's like, what the hell? But the harpies freak out and start backing away from the light. Taivo activates his warrior sword saga and the energy makes his broken sword whole again. Things are glowing gold and radiating serious power. Harpies panic and Taiho just pushes them all away with energy waves. Everyone's staring at him because he just wiped out every enemy with one move. Even Taivo looks awkward, and everyone is staring at him. With the path clear, the group keeps moving. When they're getting close to where they need to go, the big guy from Odin's Legion turns to Taiho and says, "Welcome to the battlefield." And right then, Taiho gets what he means. Down in this massive crater is a real war happening. Total chaos with metal clashing everywhere. The group starts heading down and Siri doesn't waste time. She activates her saga and arrows start flying in every direction. The crazy part is she never misses. One target after another drops until she gives the order to advance. Meanwhile, Taivo grips his broken sword hilt and activates his warrior's saga. But instead of a sword, what shows up is a crossbow. The moment he pulls the trigger, it fires 3 arrows and everything in their path gets vaporized. Once again, everyone's just staring at what he pulled off. Even Taivo's feeling confident, thinking with this, they'll reach the center real quick. And that's exactly what happens. After pushing forward for several minutes, they finally reach the center of the battlefield. There's Valkyrie Reskrid leading troops right in the thick of combat. When she spots Taivo approaching, she smiles and says it's good to have him here. He gets straight to the point, asking what the situation is. She answers quickly, saying it's almost under control, that there's a problem. The enemy has something like their steel rain and they've been attacking with it for a while. Then more trouble shows up. Looking up, Reskrid shouts for everyone to scatter. Suddenly, the sky starts falling apart, but it's not rain, it's giant rocks crashing down across the battlefield. The boulders slam into the ground, creating craters and flattening everything. But that's not even the worst part. The real danger is what's inside them because gnolls start coming out, some of them massive. Taiho shouts a warning saying another one's coming. The rock nearly crushes them, missing the whole group by inches. Everyone's tense because nobody knows what might come out of that thing. Then suddenly a fireball streaks across the sky, but it's headed in a different direction. It goes straight toward the Dark Elf village. Reskrid walks over and tells him he has to get to the Dark Elf village right now. That fireball is headed there, so they're probably under attack. She adds that on this battlefield, he's the only one she trusts to handle that situation. Taivo agrees, saying he'll find a horse and get out of there fast. But she says there's no time for that and starts removing her own cloak. Our boy gets all red. She explains the cloak will let him transform into a dragon and tells him to pick someone he trusts to go with him. Taino can picture how everyone's going to react once they know what happened here. Without hesitation, he decides to hand it to Siri. Moments later, they take off, flying over the battlefield. From behind a massive rock that nearly crushed them, a new monster pops up. This time it's a giant, nothing like the one they saw at the Black Castle. Reskrid thinks to herself how this one is smaller yet radiates far more power, which makes sense. Giants had runes similar to warriors, and their strength grew with every kill. Judging by its aura, this one had already been on a rampage. His roar shakes the battlefield, staggering even Valhalla's warriors. The giant activates his saga, the Roar of Madness, and suddenly all the monsters go into a frenzy. Meanwhile, Taiho and Siri reach the elf village only to find another giant waiting for them, but this one was shaped differently from the rest. Taganel quickly realizes it's a mage, and his fears are confirmed when the creature begins casting and hurls a devastating spell at the village. Villagers run around in panic while Taivo tells Siri to move closer so he can pull his attention. Swapping his crossbow for a lance, he throws it with everything he has, but the weapon shatters against an invisible barrier as more shields form around the giant. His trick to draw the giant's attention works, the creature locks onto them, but that only makes things worse as it unleashes spell after spell, and the elves are caught in the chaos and from above. Taiho was thinking if this continues, the village will be nothing but ash and countless lives will be lost unless they take the monster down fast. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Nine Realms, something's going down. This guy's sitting on a throne just watching everything unfold, and a harpy flies over and lands on his finger with a message. Turns out that weird spider creature is named Vault, and she's the one who got Malice to betray Valhalla, and this was all part of some plan to find this thing called the Seed. She is cursing the spider bastard for being a coward and hiding in darkness when there is a surefire way to get the Seed, and yet all of them are ignoring it. And that plan she is talking about is to burn all to the ground, much like they did in the Great War. And who is this genius, you might ask? So this Phi Mami is called the Giant of Strength Harad. She is one of the 5 giant generals working for Loki, so while Mami Harad was cooking up a plan to burn everything to the ground, our boy was trying not to die back in the village. Taivo is done with the giant's bullshit and says that if the giant keeps throwing projectiles, he's going to do the same. He starts his saga and summons this storm of spears, throwing everything at once. The problem is that annoying barrier's still there, so none of the spears get through, but he keeps going anyway. Both sides keep throwing stuff at each other, with spears hitting spells and making huge explosions everywhere. Suri looks worried, asking if this is actually doing anything. Taino explains it like he's still in a video game, keep hitting the barrier non-stop, and eventually they'll weaken enough to break through. The scene jumps to the other battlefield, where Reskrid is facing off with another giant. She knows this thing's strong enough to give her a real fight, but as the commander, she can't back down. They both charge and then they crash into each other, causing this big shockwave. Meanwhile, Taivo's still stuck in his desperate fight. His plan isn't working, yet spears keep vanishing against the barrier, but he won't quit. He's thinking they need to figure something out or this village disappears completely. Looking around, he sees houses already on fire with elves running around panicking. Then this weird group of elves shows up wearing glowing helmets with flashing lights. Taivo can't believe what he's seeing. One of them says they're the Dark Elf Fire Brigade. Leave the flames to them and focus on the giant. They all raise their hands and start casting some spell that brings storm clouds out of nowhere. Rain pours down and puts out all the fires instantly. Everything seems fine for like 2 seconds, but then the giant roars again. His magical barrier disappears because the rain is canceling his spells. Since he's a fire wizard, his weakness just became super obvious. Taivo does it right away and mentally thanks the Fire Brigade elves. They just handed him the perfect opening. He activates his saga and throws his spear with everything he's got while telling Siri to attack from behind, using his spear as cover. He knows it's time to break out the legendary sword. Launches into his final attack just like Ragnar taught him. His sync rate's at 18% now, so he uses Ancestral Dragon Barrage and blasts a huge hole clean through the giant. But then Taiyo spots something weird. There's this glowing emerald stone inside the giant like a core. Taiyo asks Suri for help. She agrees and combines their sagas. She goes first with dark purple energy wrapping around her spear, then Taiyo adds his power. They charge together and the explosion completely destroys the giant. But before they can celebrate, something crazy happens. They get sucked into the blast like there's a portal in the middle of it. The owls just stand there confused, watching Taiyo and Suri vanish into thin air. But it's not over because they wake up floating in this weird dark void filled with magical energy. Taiyo's looking around confused, asking where they are since they beat the giant. Suri stays calm, explaining that destroying the core opened the small portal. She could feel powerful magic here, though she says that it might be leftover traces from the Great War. That gets Taiyo's attention. Ever since finding the sword piece, he's been wondering about those ancient warriors. Now he's standing where they actually fought. He thinks that he can even find other fragments of the sword here and was ready to explore when Suri's stomach growls. Tangle pulls out all sorts of food from his magical pouch. Suri's shocked seeing all the stuff Taiyo was carrying around and asks if he got it from Idun. He laughs, explaining that the goddess Idun gave it to him as a reward. Suri sighs, saying this is going to be harder than she thought. Taiyo asks what she means. Turns out after all that chaos with the Regenerator and Basilisk, Valkyrie Gander wants them to convince Taiyo to join her legion. She thinks he's this amazing, one-of-a-kind warrior, but seeing how the goddess is treating Taiyo, she won't be letting go of him. Taiyo just chuckles, saying that's true. Plus, he can't leave Idun's legion because Helda is also there. After eating, he stretches and says, "Time to get out of here." Suri asks how since they don't even know where they are. But then he pulls out the sword hilt, saying maybe this little guy knows the way out. Standing at the edge of a cliff, Taiyo extends his arm, wanting the sword ahead. Suri is eyeing him hard, thinking about what this idiot is doing now. He stood there for some more time, but nothing happened, so after inwardly cursing Taiyo, Suri transforms back, and now they were wandering aimlessly in the void. Along the way, Suri starts talking. Says back in Valhalla it's rare for anyone to ask what others did when they were alive, but she's genuinely curious about Taiyo. His sagas are too incredible. Taiyo looks a little embarrassed and with his shy smile, says when he was alive, he'd been the world champion. She stares at him surprised, saying something like, "So I've been walking beside a living legend." Then he activates something again, and what he sees leaves him stunned. In front of them is this field full of weapons. Not just any weapons, these are high-tier legendary stuff. And being a true gamer, Taiyo switches into full loot mode. He starts grabbing everything in sight. Helmet, massive sword, spear, shield. He even tosses the broken ones into his magic bag. Suri just stands there watching, not sure if she should laugh or cry. She asks if he's really taking even the damaged ones. He replies while still collecting gear that of course his all of it could be useful later. That's when he notices a cheeky little belt shining brighter than the rest, and that thing came with some serious buffs. This thing boosts both strength and endurance. Suri spots the symbol on it and points out that mark belongs to the Legion of Freya. Taiyo asks who Freya is, and she explains that Freya is the goddess of love and beauty, but also war and magic. This gets Taiyo thinking if the Ivan goddess also hides talents like that. He suggests Suri grab something for herself too, since everything looks unique. She hesitates, but then, with this guilty look, pulls out a dagger. They walk for a while longer until Taiyo announces he's satisfied, but he looks ridiculous wearing his crook helmet. He jokes about needing to make room in the bag when out of nowhere the sword he took from the Basilisk starts vibrating. Taiyo carefully pulls it out, and ore starts glowing from the blade is pointing to a tiny dagger. He picks it up and asks Suri if she has any idea what the sword was pointing at. She says that maybe they came from the same place. Says maybe the people of this world fought alongside Valhalla's warriors and the weapons were forged by the same hands. Taiyo agrees that makes sense, maybe that's why he could never trace the sword's origin before. So he takes the dagger too, since the sword's already proven incredibly useful. With everything sorted, they move on. After walking a bit more, they reach the edge of this massive crater and Suri knows what it is. It's the place where Odin's army fought. She then notices that magic was gathering in the center of it, where a giant skeleton was chilling after his owner had kicked the bucket. Who knows when they get down to inspect it? Suri asks Taiyo if he can get some info. Taiyo nods, saying he can see its name. This bastard was the legendary Hellhound Garmer. Suri panics. She told Kai that they should run away from here. But that's when the bones started gathering in one place, and the magic brought the beast back to life with a burst of magic. That bastard was standing in front of them, and he hadn't come alone. He brought company, many, and soon the battlefield was swarming with the monsters. Kai clenches his sword, ready for the battle. When something strange happens, the monsters ignore them completely and start fighting among themselves. Suri wanted to bolt out of there, but Taiyo grabs her and points to the monsters and says they can't go like this. They have to do the boss battle. At this moment, Suri wanted nothing more than to beat this guy up, but she held back. She told him to get on top of her. Her strategy was simple: fly straight into the boss at full force. That bastard lets out a roar that almost made both heroes deaf, but the worst came right after. Lightning struck down from above. Siri instantly lost her balance. Both of them started plummeting down. Once they were down, asked if she was alright. That's when this bastard realized that he'd landed right on top of her. He immediately turned bright red, apologizing and saying it wasn't intentional. Siri said she was fine. Before she could even get up, the monsters swarmed them. Taivo started throwing hands with them, buying time for Siri to get up. Once she was up, both of them charged at the boss. Staying and charging towards him, the boss attacked them with a fire breath that they dodged without breaking a sweat. Since the boss too was a dumb creature, he got busy with the other monsters. Taivo gave the signal to Siri. She activated her Sama and fired arrows at the boss. None did real damage but got the monster's attention. The beast opened its mouth, but before it could bite her down, Siri transformed into a wolf and got away. She shouted that normal attacks wouldn't work. Taivo would have to go all in with his special ability. Taivo activated his Sama's Storm Warrior. Drawing his legendary sword, he used the power of the gods. Golden energy surged across the blade and he landed a direct hit on the boss. Man, he thought he had landed a critical hit, maybe even cut down one of the legs, but it did absolutely nothing, just a tiny scratch. Siri shouted for him to jump on her back again. She wanted to repeat their combo attack, but the boss didn't let her ride him this time as he attacked with a fire breath. Taivo realized that they won't be able to kill this thing with half-hearted attacks, so he asked Siri to buy him some time. He activated his Dragon Eyes Saga and began scanning everything. Taivo noticed something new right below the monster's name, and description appeared, Absolute Defense, and something clicked for him. He realized that the boss hasn't moved from his spot for once since the battle started. That meant only one thing, that he is guarding something. Meanwhile, Siri had figured out something as well. She knew that normal attack won't work on him, but maybe her curse ability will since she's in her wolf witch form, so he jumps high in the air and bit the boss, and her hunch was read her curse ability, and now the boss was a Grodon, but she was running out of stamina, so she turned to Taiho saying whatever he is planning to do, he needs to do it fast because she can't hold on for long. But Taiho just turned and ran straight at the monsters. He used his power of divinity and took care of the small fries, and instantly he had figured out the way to kill the beast at some of this strange rock that was stuck in the ground. He used all of his power to pull it out of there while the boss was heading straight at him and got dangerously close, and he finally pulled it out. As he did, the monster disappeared. Taivo points at the hold. He had yanked the crystal and says that it's the exit. She screamed for Taivo to climb on her back. Without hesitation, he jumped. Behind them, the ghostly warriors defeated the last of the monster. One warrior announced the beast was down and cheers of victory broke out, but someone asked where those two had gone. A warrior noticed the portal on the ground. Everyone gathered around it one by one. They began jumping in. Everyone was smiling. One even shouted that they were going to Valhalla. So Raskrid and this giant are still going at it, trading blows like crazy. Neither one's backing down. Then boom, the portal opens and our boy Taiho just pops out of nowhere right in the middle of this mess. He hits the ground and Raskrid's like, how the hell did you guys get here so fast? The giant spots the crystal Taiho's carrying and his eyes light up. This Jew realizes that's the seed their king's been hunting for this whole time. He reaches his massive hand toward Taiho, trying to snatch it. Raskrid yells for everyone to protect Taiho and jumps in with her sword to block the giant. That's when some wild stuff happens. She sees these ghosts of ancient Valhalla warriors just standing there, holding back the giant's hand. One ghost says they have to join the fight. More and more ghosts start showing up on the battlefield, and now the giant's in trouble. The ghost leader turns to Raskrid, asking for permission to fight, saying they want to protect Asgard one last time. She doesn't hesitate and gives them the go-ahead. As soon as she does, these ghosts start getting their bodies back and charge straight at the giant. While everyone's fighting the smaller monsters, the giant lets out this massive roar and tries to join his army, but Raskrid comes flying and screaming that she's his opponent. Rolf asks Taiho and Siri how they got back so quick, since they only left a few hours ago. Taiho says time has flowed differently in that void place they were in, but Siri doesn't care about any of that. She wants to jump into the fight. Taivo grabs her again and says they should focus on the boss and let others handle the small stuff, so she turns into her wolf form and they're back in the sky. Taiho can tell Siri's beat. She's had 2 crazy battles back to back with no break. He tells her to chill, saying their job isn't to kill this thing, just to do enough damage to get its attention. He explains that Raskrid and the giant are evenly matched, so if they can distract the giant for even a second, that'll tip things in their favor. Taiho activates his power and starts throwing his lances at the giant one after another. After the 3rd hit, the giant gets pissed. He turns to Taiho and says his attacks aren't even tickling him, and once he's done with Raskrid, he's going to personally send Taiho to hell. But Taiho just keeps launching spears. Siri's like, doesn't look like he's paying attention to you. But then Raskrid charges again, and now the giant's totally focused on her, ignoring everything else. This was exactly what Taiho was waiting for. He puts divine power into his lance and throws it with perfect aim. It smashes right into the giant's hand, messing up the big attack he was about to unleash. Raskrid doesn't waste the chance. She activates her god powers and takes the giant down. Now that the big bad is dead, the monster army is screwed and the warriors are pumped up. They push forward and wipe out the rest of the monsters easily. Taigo's sitting on a cliff saying they won, then drops down to finally get some rest. Ciri's watching him, thinking there's really something special about this bastard. She wants him fighting on their side for as long as possible. With the battle over, it's time for the Ghost Warriors to head back. Their leader thanks Riskrid for letting them fight and asks her to guide their souls back to Valhalla. Riskrid thanks them back, saying Valhalla will always welcome them. She changes into this white outfit and calls the Bifrost to take them home. Before leaving, the warriors look at Taiho and tell him they're going to tell Odin about how brave he was. So Raskrid tells the group she's got to bounce because she needs to guide the Ghost Warriors back. She promises everyone that when they all meet up again in the Great Hall, nobody's going to go unrecognized. Everyone's getting their rewards, especially Taiho and Ciri, since their courage basically saved the whole battle. Taiho walks up to her and returns her fur coat back to her. Raskrid turns to Ciri, asking what it was like carrying Taiho through all that chaos. Ciri says she was just doing her duty. Before heading back, she told them that Ragenleaf and Gander will arise soon to take over. But before she goes, she walks up to Taiho and gives him a gentle kiss on the forehead. Taiho just freezes up. His heart starts pounding. He was about to come up with names for his future children. With her when he turned and saw that she'd also kissed Ciri too. He realizes this kiss is just like the one Helda gave him before. It's just a Valkyrie ritual thing. Meanwhile, way off in the frozen wasteland of Jotunheim, things are getting tense. Harad was pissed, but not because they lost. She never cared about the result of this battle. It was supposed to drain Valhalla's strength. What's really got her pissed is that the seed, the thing they've been hunting for, ended up in Taiho's hands. Now their secrets might get exposed. He's scared of how the king is going to react. When the Evolve from before told her not to overthink it since the king hadn't said anything yet, she said that maybe the king wanted this to happen all along. Time passes and 2 more Valkyries show up. They land near Taiho and Ciri. Taiho reports everything that happened and pulls out the seed. Ragenleaf doesn't know what that thing was, but she was happy that they didn't let those bastards succeed. She takes the seed from Taiho, stores it in this fancy-looking chest, and then she gets in Taiho's face and kisses him on the forehead. Although he had been through this once, he can't help but feel flustered, but seeing that Ciri was getting the same treatment, he thinks maybe this is normal around here. He turns to Gander and asks if she won't bless them too. She laughs and says few people have the guts to ask a Valkyrie for that, but she agrees. Taiho closes his eyes, thinking one more blessing can't hurt. He is thinking of another kiss on the forehead, but Gander kisses him on the cheek. Armoy was on cloud 9 after that. Just as the Valkyries are about to leave, guess who shows up? Helda. She arrives just in time to see that unique blessing Gander gave. Her face doesn't hide anything. With her jealous eyes, she asks Taiho what was happening here. Taiho tries to come up with something, but, just as always, fumbles pretty hard. Ciri, who was watching this from the sideline, says that these two are pretty amusing. Soon, the transport back to Valhalla was ready. Taiho climbed into a coffin for the trip, and Helda still wasn't letting it go. She asked Taiho if he enjoyed getting all those blessings. He thought he might not survive this one. Then she leaned in, brushed her hair back, and gave him her own blessing. Both of them turned as red. Meanwhile, deep at the roots of Yggdrasil, Odin and Thor walked together in silence. Odin pulled out the seed and asked Mimir if this was what Fenrir had been chasing. Mimir looked it over and said yes, it was a fragment of Garma's soul. If all the pieces were found, Garm could be revived. Bodu frowned, saying the reward didn't seem worth the effort. Thor then asked if Garm was connected to Fenrir. Mimir confirmed it. Garm's howl could wake Fenrir, and if Fenrir woke up, he'd snap his chains and hunt Odin down. And when that happened, the All-Father would meet his forefathers. Meanwhile, up in the frozen wasteland of Jotunheim, some seriously bad news is brewing. But Loki, this smug grin tells Uckard Loki that the 5 generals are already on the move. Loki just laughs like a maniac and says the real battles are just getting started. Back under Yggdrasil, Mimir warns that the giants don't even need Garma fully alive. Just one howl from one fragment would be enough to kick off Ragnarok. Odin adds that someone among them had this special saga ability that could speed up the whole apocalypse thing. Thor immediately clenches his fists because he already knows exactly who they're talking about: Loki, that backstabbing bastard. Without missing a beat, Odin hands the seed fragment to Thor and tells him to destroy it. Even knowing how powerful this thing is, Odin's made his choice. Getting rid of the risk is the only way to buy them some time. Meanwhile, the thick goddess is back. Our boy had come back to the temple to report to her. She starts praising him, saying how she had heard the warriors of Valhalla chanting her name. Idun gives him one of those rare radiant smiles. Then she tells him it's time for his reward. Taivo lights up, expecting that legendary cloak that would let him transform into a Pegasus. He's been dreaming about this thing, but Idun has other plans. She chuckles and tells him that he has to choose once again. She had prepared 2 rewards for him this time as well. The first was the clock that would turn him into Pegasus, which he already knows about, and the second is a saddle. This thing will let him ride any creature, no matter how big, what species, or how strong. No limits whatsoever. His mind just explodes with possibilities. He's imagining himself as this massive falcon with someone riding on his back. As soon as he exits the temple, he runs straight into Helda and Ragna, who've been waiting outside for him. One look at his face, and they can tell he picked something incredible. Ragnar says Taiho looks different and stronger and suggests they should ramp up their training, but Helda cuts in, reminding them they just got back from the front lines and should probably rest instead of punishing themselves. That's when Taivo remembers something important. Since they're not training, he asks for their help with something else. They all head to his cabin, where Taiho starts pulling out this weird collection of junk. He gathered all this stuff from the battlefield of gods. Ragnar looks confused and starts laughing, asking if Taivo's become some kind of scavenger. Most of the weapons are broken, rusty, and look pretty useless, but then Helda steps forward and touches one of the beat-up weapons and says that she can still feel the magic power from it. Ragnar agrees and suggests they try returning the weapons to their original legions. Taiho loves the idea and they get to work. They're examining runes, magical signatures, and forge marks. Each legion in Valhalla leaves its own fingerprint on weapons, so they're trying to match blade to history. Hours pass, and then Helda just freezes in front of this dagger. She's staring at it. After several minutes, Ragnar guesses it might not belong to any standard unit. Maybe it's like Taiho's own sword, just some outlier. That gives Taivo an idea. He decides to use his ability. He grabs the dagger and focuses, channeling his power. As he does that, the rune fills with a blue light, and then nothing happens. As Taigo was about to set it down, his eyes suddenly lit up and projected some images on the wall. The vision shows this warrior, whom none of them recognize, sailing across a violet sea toward this dark, creepy island. She says she's finally found the place that's been hidden in myths. She heads inside the castle with all of these bones just lying there. She remembers hearing rumors about the Queen of Shadows, and the rumors say that she is this evil queen who would eat people and bathe in maiden's blood, but she won't believe anything until she sees it with her own eyes. She finally meets her, and she wasn't anything like the rumors said. She was this nice lady and even took her as her student. Years pass, she goes through brutal trials and becomes even more powerful. When it's finally time to leave the island, the maiden gives her a parting gift, a spear crafted from ancient sea monster bones. With that kick-ass spear in her hand, she never knew defeat. That was until she met that bastard Loki. He defeats her without breaking a sweat and tells her that her family, friends, and everything she fought for have been wiped from existence. She has absolutely nothing left. He just turns and walks away. But the lady launches herself at him to end him then and there, but that bastard was just playing with her. He looks back, and with just that alone, her spear and her world both get destroyed. The vision cuts out, and everyone's just standing there stunned. Ragnar breaks the silence, saying these were pieces from Shu's life. Tidal asks who that warrior was, and Ragnar explains it was Shu, the strongest warrior from that destroyed world. He adds that if he had to compare, Shu was on the same level as Valhalla's legendary Sigurd. That blows Taio's mind. But then Taio notices something weird. Now he can actually read the name etched on the dagger fragments of Guy Bulk. Ragnar says now everything makes perfect sense why the Sava didn't work before. He told Guy not to use his Sada on it, saying that they don't know what kind of djinns might be on it. Taivo asks him what djinns are. He explains that djinns are these crazy powerful spiritual bindings that let one borrow power in exchange for making an oath, and since Shu had an indomitable will, her weapons, djinns, might be too much for Taiho to handle. The weapon might not even accept him as its master. It could turn against him. But from the vision, Taivo felt something different. It was like the weapon was trying to communicate, showing him, this is the level you need to reach. He realizes it's not enough to just possess Guy Bold, he has to become worthy of it. Ragnar nods, saying now he was talking like a man. The scene shifts. They were back in the house. Taivo asks Helda if she knows where he can get a mount. He says that it doesn't need to be something fancy like the other regions, just something to get by. And man, get this. The bastard had chosen the saddle thinking of Ciri. He is thinking that he should never say that out loud because maybe she would even kill him for that. Helda told him that Idun's legion doesn't have a designated mount. Ragnar suggests Taivo could buy a horse in Vanaheim, but then he changes his tone and asks him if he only wants a means of transport, but that won't suit a warrior. He asks him if they should just capture one themselves. There's this place near the border between Valhalla and Olympus that's crawling the griffins. Taivo could capture his own mount there. Helda thinks it's a great idea and decides to come along. They invite Ciri too since she's on leave. In the last battle, Ciri also awakened her divine aura from contact with Taiho, but this Fandra was in a difficult position since her idol was right in front of her, so she couldn't afford to look weak, but my girl was at her limits. Ragnar had made them maintain their auras for long stretches with no mercy. He decided that it would be enough and told them that they could rest now. He looks out of the window and tells Helda that they should camp for now. They get down on the riverside and roast this juicy steak. Ragnar hands over the meat to everyone. While handing it to Ciri, he suggests that she join Idun's legion too. This way he could keep teaching her all the time. Ciri blushes but declines, saying her loyalty or her current legion comes first. The next morning they reach the jagged cliffs where griffins roam. Ragnar has Helda prepare bait by enchanting their horse to intensify its scent. It turns out griffins love horse flesh. Within minutes, 3 griffins burst out, locked onto the bait. Ragnar says that he'll watch from the sidelines. Ciri and Taiho are already in battle mode. She whips out her crossbow and puts 3 arrows on it, while Taiho pulls out his cloak and transforms into a massive falcon. Both of the girls weren't expecting it. They thought that he'd ride one of them, so they looked. I'm kind of disappointed, Ragnar. That bastard caught on to it and said he should have told him to go into the battle riding one of them. Helda got all shy and told him that it's nothing like that. So our boy Taiho is facing down 3 griffins. One of these beasts locks onto him. Taiho shows he's got some serious brain cells. Instead of going full berserker mode, he plays it smart. He dodges the attack and starts climbing higher. So while this oversized bird brain is chasing Taiho around the sky, Siri down below is lining up her shot. She pulls out 3 arrows and they're tipped with paralyzing poison. All 3 arrows hit their mark, and just like that, 1 griffin down. But Tia doesn't want these regular flying chickens. He wants the special one. Then we hear it, a roar that probably woke up every creature within a 50-mile radius. The alpha griffin has entered the chat, folks. This thing is massive, twice the size of the others. He is waiting for the horse meat that he was promised, and then a thought pops up in his mind. He wonders if those bastards left him out and started eating it without him, so he decides to go check for himself. Meanwhile, the group had taken down all of the griffins. Ragnar says that more or less does it, and now all they have to do is to wait for the big one to show up. Tidal puts the saddle on one of the griffins and soars in the sky. After a while, he hears the birds flying away in shock. Ragnar tells him to get ready and hands Taiho this magical rope. It's enchanted to suppress power and resistance. The alpha makes its move, and man, this thing is fast, like super fast, and the fact that Taiho was riding his woman just made things even worse. It lunges at Taiho, but our boy's body literally blurs in midair before the alpha could get him. He transforms into a falcon. The griffin is like, what the hell? But then he thinks doesn't matter. Hawk meat is not bad either. Charges at him once again. Taiho waits until the very last second, then transforms back to human form. With no time to waste, he lands right on the griffin's back and wraps that magical rope around its neck. And folks, this beast does not go down easy. It puts up a fight. He is thinking, I can't lose to this puny human, but he finds dealing with our boy too much, and Ragnar's rope also starts taking effect. He thinks it's the right time and pulls out the sword. Since his last battle, his synchronization with his character has reached 20% synchronization, and his Saga Warrior sword has been upgraded, so he activates something called the Blacksmith Saga. His sword literally reshapes itself into a massive hammer. He raises this thing high and strikes the rope with it, tripling the rope's enchantment effects. The griffin somehow resists it for the first time, but now he can't use any strength at all. Taiho uses this opportunity and uses the Dragon Commander Sada, and the griffin is feeling the effect and maybe enjoying it. Bro literally broke the griffin. Down below, everyone is cheering for him. As Taiho gets down with his new flying buddy, he tells everyone that this guy's name was Rollo. When Helda heard something, everyone turned to find out where it was coming from. They saw the emergency signal in the sky. Ragnar said that 2 of them going off the same time is bad. It meant that the nearby unit was under attack. Helda suggested that they split up, transform into her swan form, and tell Siri to get on her back before she took off. She told Taiho not to be stupid and to be careful. Taiho told her not to worry. That's when Ragnar mounts Rollo, and Taiho is thinking, this guy has some tough muscles. So they're flying toward the battlefield, and they had barely crossed a few Mount Hans, and the once dense forest that was there was now gone. In the middle of all this chaos, they spot the problem. 2 giants are going at it with Valhalla's warriors. Barak from Thor's legion was holding on the front against the giant. The giant storms at him with his giant war axe, and Brak just meets it head-on with pure strength. Ragnar leaps from the griffin and unleashes his divine aura, and in the next moment the giant was dead. This dude really entered with style. The battlefield erupts in cheers because everyone knows what Ragnar showing up means. Victory is basically guaranteed at this point. Then Taiho tells his griffin to dive bomb the remaining giant. Perfect timing, crashes into this thing and gives Brak the opening he needs. Brak starts glowing and just destroys this giant's axe with 1 hit. Then he jumps up and splits the giant's skull in half. Everyone was cheering for Ragnar like usual, then Brak, but then they start chanting something new. Then they realized that the one who rode a Valkyrie was there too, so they started chanting his name too. Taiho was pissed, thinking, cut out with a stupid nickname already. He lands. Brak walks over to Taiho with this huge grin and gives him the classic shoulder clap. All the other warriors are gathering around, asking what kind of Valkyrie he rode this time. Poor Taiho has to break it to them that it was just a male griffin, which clearly crushed their dreams of having another epic tale to spread around. But Brak cuts through all the joking, saying there's no time for celebration. Another group needs help, and the war isn't taking a timeout. Ragnar immediately switches to serious mode and demands to know what's going on. Brak explains they found another piece of soul fragment.
End of the story. Hit that like button. Subs to the Reader Son to make more mythic content.